Michael Correia is the Director of Government Relations for the NCIA. I've already read Aaron Smith's memo on how excited he is about the developments of Thursday when President Joe Biden announces all of a sudden, out of the blue, that he wants to move forward with decriminalization of cannabis. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on a short notice. I got to get right off the bat. Did this come as a surprise to you?
It came as a surprise to me, but I mean, we just did our lobby days 3 weeks ago. We can chalk it up to all of our cannabis industry people coming to DC and getting some publicity on this. It was a surprise to me because I don't think the White House has signaled over the past 18 months any, I know he made campaign promises, and I know he said, people shouldn't be in jail and it should be criminalized. But they haven't whispered anything. They haven't given any hints during the past 18 months, especially in the summer. So I didn't really hear much of this coming out of the White House. So it is coming out of left field, and I'm pleasantly surprised.
And congratulations, because I know how hard you and the other NCIA people work at this, and to actually see this happen out of the blue has to be a nice feeling for you.
Well, I started in 2013, and it was a different world before there were legal sales. And my goal was representing the cannabis industry on Capitol Hill, putting a professional face on the cannabis industry, letting the industry being treated like every other industry in America, and just raising the public profile of this issue. And to think, in 2014, we had the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment pass Congress. And let's be honest, 8 years later, what has really moved besides legislation being introduced or one chamber or another passing some bill, but what has actually changed in law that's been significant? And now the President of the United States is actually doing something to where people's cannabis convictions are going to get pardoned. This is going to be life-changing for many thousands of people. And this is actually going to change that discussion and hopefully spur governors out there to do the same, where, most of these convictions, I don't know if it's 90+% of these convictions are at the state level, but it starts that process. And, I can't say this enough. The President of the United States is taking, very serious cannabis issue policy and discussing it and putting it out there for the public to ruminate on. And that's pretty historic. And so, like I said, I'm pleasantly surprised. This is better than doing nothing. This is better than sitting on their hands. I'll be honest with you. They could have done this on January 22nd of 2021. So 18, 20 months later, but I am happy. It coincides, 4 weeks before an election, shocker that came out. But like I said, I'm very happy, and to think about the difference this is going to make in so many people's lives, those thousands directly and indirectly, those who are going to be, hopefully their records expunged and they can get on with their life. It's just really important.
How political was the timing of this, Michael? You mentioned it already.
Well,
before the midterms.
I've been in DC in politics for over a quarter century. Maybe call me a cynic, but like I said, they could have done this the day after inauguration. Maybe it could have gotten some press. It could have been important. The fact that this is happening 4 weeks before an election, maybe a pollster got in front of them. Maybe someone said, hey, this is going to, and we know where the public is on this. We know where young people are on this. We know this can bring a lot of energy to voters. And, when you look at this election, you're looking at differences. What are differences between the Democrats and Republicans? And the Democrats have had a very, I guess you could say, positive, productive past couple months. And I think that is a reason to where they can campaign and say, we've done this. And now the president can say, I've done this, and it was a campaign promise, and he can say he checked it off. And this is one more reason for them to this shouldn't be a partisan issue, but is becoming a partisan issue. And this is one of the things both parties need to step up. And, if the Democrats are in charge, they need to step up while they have the power in this town, and they're doing something. And that will hopefully, I think, remind voters, hey, we're doing something. Check it off your list. You want cannabis reform? Hey, we're the party doing something. And so, yes, I look at everything through a political lens because I'm a cynic and that's what I do. But I think it's just good for the cause, and it's perfect timing.
Now, as we all have followed this story, or the story of the evolution of the federal, the charge and the efforts to change federal cannabis laws, Senator Cory Booker has always been the one voicing exactly what President Biden did on Thursday, right? He's the one who was pushing the social equity, pushing the pardoning of all those people in jail. He must be feeling extra happy tonight.
No, I think this is what he's fighting for. This is what we've all been fighting for. This is what advocates have been fighting for 50 plus years. No one should be arrested for this plant. But the fact that, what are we at, 46, 47 states have laws that conflict with the federal government, there's something that needs to be done. The fact that even though many states are legalizing this, other states are still arresting people, and people who've gotten arrested over the years for this plant and whose lives were ruined because of this plant. That needs to be righted. And I know Cory Booker is doing the right thing. He's fighting the good fight on this, and this is what he's fighting for. I can't say I have President Biden on speed dial, but I guarantee you Senator Schumer and Booker do in having those discussions. And I know the president was in Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago, and the the Lieutenant Governor Fetterman was talking about this issue, and more people at higher levels of government are talking about this issue and pushing this issue. And I think the president has heard a lot of these respected voices in the Democratic Party, the state level. A lot of governors, a lot of attorneys general, a lot of senators are saying this is a safe issue, do this. And I think you're seeing him respond on something like this. But this is exactly what Cory Booker's fighting for. This is what we're fighting for.
Yeah, and it's great. And, so the expungement is there. He's urging the governors in different states to move forward with pardoning and expunging records as well. And then the third thing he talked about was the implementing the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General to look into the proper scheduling of cannabis. Is that do you think there'll be a movement on that, or a descheduling of it, or any inkling on how that might go?
The rescheduling, descheduling issue is a complex issue, and I'm not going to do a rescheduling tutorial 101. But the Brookings Institution, John Hudak, who's one of the smartest guys out there on cannabis, go to their website. He's done a paper. People think the president can snap his fingers and deschedule cannabis or reschedule. He can't. They can start the process. It's related to the Attorney General, Department of Justice, HHS. He's now reached out to HHS Secretary and the Attorney General to start this process and review it. That's the first step. And so there's two ways Congress can do this. President Obama always said that this is something Congress needs to do. They need to step in and they need to change the laws. But at the same time, now having that discussion and getting HHS and DOJ to start talking about this issue and re-looking at what the scheduling should be is an important first step, because that gets it, this is a news issue. Gets it out there. We start talking about it. Voters talk about it. Elected officials talk about it. And now we can start saying, what's up? What's DOJ thinking? What's your research? Because we all know, Jimmy, you know the history. This was put in Schedule 1 for political reason, for racist reasons, not for science, not for good policy. And so now, let's be honest with that. It is a drug, but let's have an honest discussion about this plant. And NCIA, as a trade association, we don't support going to Schedule 2. I don't think Schedule 2 does anything to address the issue. Rescheduling is better than scheduling, but descheduling is what our focus is, and that's what we support, and that's what we're looking for. And there are ways to deschedule this plant and actually use it and address it as a policy issue at the state level, and having the federal government sort of support what the states are doing from a regulatory standpoint. They've done it with alcohol and other things, and there's ways to do it without having to reschedule this as a 2 or a 3 or look at it as a drug. Now, is it a straight commodity like a tomato plant? No, but it isn't as harmful or more harmful than cocaine or methamphetamine or heroin. In the way it's scheduled, it's scheduled as the most dangerous drug. And so it is important that they're at least saying, finally, a president is saying, hey, let's review this 50 years after the Controlled Substances Act was put in. Let's review it. Let's start this process. and it's better than doing nothing. And I'm glad. I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm really glad the president is doing something. I think there's going to be a good public support and on this issue, and I think he and Democrats are going to get rewarded. I think it's a great first step, and it definitely energized me on something like this. And like I said, since Rohrabacher Farr, how many things have actually happened that have made a difference versus just a news click item? Now this is something that's really important.
Absolutely. And the one issue that we've talked about ad nauseum on this show with you is, of course, the Safe Banking Act.
Yeah.
Needless to say, he didn't mention anything like that. However, if the Health and Human Services and the Attorney General decide to deschedule cannabis, doesn't that open up the banks without voting on safe banking?
So the reason why SAFE is needed is because of its scheduling of the cannabis plant is it's breaking Bank Secrecy Act laws, it's anti-money laundering laws. There's an issue because of its scheduling. So if it was descheduled, that issue would go away just by itself. I really think that, if you were to ask me how I see this playing out, I do think Congress is going to have an important role in this. I really do think Congress is eventually going to be the ones that reschedule, but this is important. The president, for however long he's in power, for at least 2 more years and maybe 6 more years, in that amount of time, they can give Congress the ammunition and the reason to reschedule. And hearing the executive branch prioritize this and give a reason to where now they're supportive, it'll make it easier for Congress to do something. But it's still, I think, going to come down to votes. Obama said this was too big for them to handle administratively. I think Biden would do the same thing, but administratively, he's doing what he said he could do. Now he's starting the process, which will be more long-term. For anyone to think that, cannabis is going to be legalized in any short term, that's not going to happen. But the process is starting, and it's a good process to where now we can talk about it.
Right. And again, I've always felt that decriminalization was the first step. And even historically in the states have always looked at it that way as well. So
it's 2022. No one should be arrested for this plan. Right. I don't care what state you're in. It's just a waste of taxpayer money to do something like this, and just being honest with this. And whatever the federal government does, it's still up to the states. Like I said, that's where a majority of these arrests are taking place. And so the biggest issue is going to be, is this going to incentivize, even though that's not a word, give incentive to these state governors to do something? And now, could you go to something like Congressman Dave Joyce's HOPE Act, which deals with expungement and sort of is a program to help speed that process along? Do you pivot to something like that on the Hill, get that out there and make it easier for these states to start that process? NCIA would love it. We're supportive of any reform is good, whether that's research, whether that's working for vets, whether that's expungement, whether that's safe, whether that's legalization. These are all things that need to get addressed. And if Congress does anything, we're supportive of it.
There you go. And thank you very much, Michael, for joining us on short notice about this very important day in history, because that's exactly what's happened here. I actually think that Trekkie Dick Nixon is probably rolling in his grave somewhere, right? And good, right? This guy screwed this country up, but good back in the day. Didn't even see the end of his term. So there's something to be said for that. But meanwhile, that Controlled Substances Act was still a big part of our modern society and our modern laws. And it's about time that something changes. And that, I think, is what happened on Thursday. So Michael Correia, the Department of Government Relations, all happening in Washington, D.C., never a dull moment. So appreciate you taking the time. And I want to tell our audience, don't go away, because now that we've heard from the NCIA, we're going to hear from Michael's old friend, Morgan Fox, who's now with NORML. Don't go away. We'll have that in just a moment.
As a broker, we have access to many, many cannabis carriers. So I will go in with 2 or 3 quotes for people. The quotes might be $20,000 for one, $22,000 for another, $17,500 for another. Pretty close among the 3. What I tell people is it's not the pricing, it's what's included and not included, meaning exclusions. An exclusion in layman's terms is just something that's not included. It's not on the menu. So it's just not included. But if you don't know that, if no one shows you that on page 71 of a 150-page policy, you're not going to know. No one knows. I never met one person that says they read an insurance policy. If you do, I got some property in Florida for you.
Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of pro-cannabis media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out stylelighting.shop for more information.
Yeah, this is a tune that I wrote back in 19... I've forgotten. We had a saying in our old band, one of my first bands in 1966 or so. What are you going to do tonight? Oh, just, like every other night, just going to lay around the shanty and put a good buzz on. Gonna sit down in the kitchen, fix me something good to eat. Make my head a little high, make the whole day complete. Gonna lay around the shanty, oh mama, and put a good buzz on. Pass it to me, baby, pass it to me slow. We'll take time out to smile a little before you let her go. We're gonna lay around the shanty, oh mama, and put a good buzz on. You're on something. Go ahead. Rick Brodsky, everybody. Nothing to do and there's always room for more. Fill it, light it, shut up and close that door, baby. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. Take it, okay. Prohibition never works, it's time to realize it. It grows in my backyard, it's time to legalize it. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. I'm going to sit down in my rented car. I'm going to jam it into drive. Going to head on out and play at WSCA with Sean. I'm glad I'm alive. We're going to lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on every night and day. We're going to lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on.
Nice. It's Friday. Thank God. Thank God Jonathan Edwards is joining us live in the WSCA.
We've got breaking news for all farmers and growers out there. How would you like to defer the taxes you pay on your grow? Now you can legally, thanks to a discovery by agricultural tax attorney Michael Berwick of the law firm Greenspoon Martyr.
I have been working with tax deferral for 20 years, and my team at Greenspoon Martyr in the tax area got together with our team in the cannabis area. And putting our heads together collectively, we have determined that this major tax deferral clause includes the growing of cannabis.
Now, don't think that this is a new tax code clause because it's been around for over a century.
Absolutely. This provision's been around for over 100 years. It applies. It was designed for agriculture. It was put in force at a time when we had a much more agrarian economy, big lobby for agriculture and farming, and that definition of agriculture has grown and expanded over the years. And again, it now includes cannabis.
How does it work?
Essentially, it will allow the taxpayer, if done correctly through us, it will allow the taxpayer to defer all state and federal ordinary income taxes for 30 years.
To find out more and see if you qualify as a grower, contact Michael Berwick at 305-789-2761 or call toll-free 888-491-1120 and ask for Michael Berwick's office, or just email him at michael.berwick, that's BURWICK, at gmlaw.com. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to a very special edition of Green Rush Live on a Friday afternoon here at Pro Cannabis Media. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, and it is a very big day because of what happened yesterday with the president, Joe Biden, expunging the records of federally convicted people in jail, so that this is the first step towards perhaps a full decriminalization of cannabis. Joining us now is Morgan Fox in Washington, D.C. He, of course, represents NORML now. And Morgan, busy day. Did this surprise you that this happened today yesterday of all things?
To the best of my knowledge, only a handful of lawmakers had any foreknowledge that this was coming down the pipe. Just a short couple of weeks ago, the White House press secretary said that there were no developments on this issue whatsoever. So it was a very pleasant surprise. Now, I should clarify a little bit that a pardon is not the same as an expungement. The arrest and conviction will still show up on your record, but it does help you to be able to get back some of your rights that may have been stripped from you because of that conviction, such as voting, et cetera. And, overall, it does help pave the way for complete expungement that removes cannabis arrests from your record. So, this is definitely a huge step in the right direction, even if it only affects federal convictions for possession and doesn't get a single person out of jail. The collateral consequences of these criminal records can have really lifelong negative effects on people and stop them from being able to fulfill their full potential, and can even drag entire communities down, as we've seen before.
Well, that's the whole point of making this happen, I suppose. But I have to ask this question: the timing of this. coincidental that it's only a month before the midterm elections or not?
I'm sure that politics definitely played a part in it. So far, I mean, NORML has been pressuring the Biden administration since the first day of office to follow through on his campaign promises to pardon federal convicts and clear their records or do whatever he could to help alleviate the collateral consequences of their arrests and convictions, as well as to do a number of other things. But what he did today was really a huge step in the right direction. I mean, between pardoning people that could have positive benefits for thousands of people's lives, he's also directing state governors to try to expedite these processes themselves, and that's where the vast majority of arrests take place. Not to mention the fact that he's called for an Health and Human Services review of the scheduling of cannabis. Now, you and I both know that rescheduling is not a good thing, but I think that this does help pave the way for conversations at top federal agencies about the fact that Schedule 1 is an entirely inappropriate place for cannabis. And given that Congress is moving closer and closer towards descheduling, still ways off, but they're moving in the right direction, this is definitely a really great sign. And honestly, I think that the timing is probably at least partially due to the midterms, and somebody got in the president's ear and said, look, fulfilling your campaign promises in this manner is going to be supported by the vast majority of Americans. And it is something that will show the American people that government can get things done. And not only that, but that the administration recognizes the harms caused by prohibition and is taking active steps to try to address them.
Yeah, the scheduling, where it ends up still is a big thing of debate for everybody. I don't think there's a lot of people who are afraid of Schedule 2 because they believe that big pharma that will then just come in and take over the industry. Is that realistic?
Well, I think the big pharma issue is not really the one that matters as much as the fact that rescheduling doesn't eliminate the state-federal conflict. Descheduling is really the only way to eliminate that conflict, as well as to completely eliminate all of the other issues that are associated with federal prohibition, at least in terms of governmental procedure, what people are legally allowed to do, etc. And it also is the best path towards a sound regulatory structure. So, when people talk about rescheduling, I'm always extremely skeptical. Even it wouldn't really have too much of a positive impact at all unless you got below Schedule 3. So really, descheduling is the way to go and is the only way that we can, really end prohibition. And that's going to be up to Congress.
Right. And obviously politics plays a big role in everything in Washington, D.C. It's just the nature of our national government based in one spot. And the midterms, there's all sorts of races now that are teetering, and bringing out the cannabis vote and making candidates have to pick a side, if you will, is what I think is going to be the trickle-down effect of this particular actions that he took today. And excuse me, I keep saying today, it was yesterday, wink, wink. Obviously, we're recording this, but you know what? We like to think that we could do it live, as if it's live, because the conversation we're having is live, even though we're recording it. So I go back to that. I still maintain that this is all political. The timing was political. He had this in his back pocket since January when he took office, and he's playing that card now. And the people in the industry are embracing it, obviously, because this is a step at least in the right direction for the cannabis industry. Yes?
Well, I don't necessarily think that this was something that the Biden administration was planning from the beginning of the year to pull out right before the midterms at all.
Okay.
But I think that
we're going to disagree about that. We're going to disagree about that, Morgan. Okay.
Fair enough. But
because I really think they had this in their back pocket the whole time. Go ahead.
Well, I think that there has been enough pressure over the recent months, and there's been a fair amount of new information coming out that I think really plays into this. For instance, last week, the Brookings Institute came out with a study showing that less than 20% of federal candidates for Congress staked out a public position on this issue, either pro or con. And the basic conclusion was that lawmakers hadn't been getting the sense that this was a priority issue for voters. And earlier this week, a morning consult poll came out showing that nearly a majority of Democratic voters think that cannabis policy reform should be prioritized and considered it either a top priority or a near top priority. So I think that that poll coming out right on the heels of the Brookings Institute study really, at least, was very illuminating for me, and really, I think, kind of codified exactly how advocates need to be focusing their arguments. But I think that it also probably resonated with the administration, and hopefully is resonating with members of Congress.
Now that this is now moving in a direction that is more positive, what does this do to the wrangling in the Senate about the Safe Banking Act? Because if they deschedule cannabis, if that's what the Health and Human Services and the Attorney General recommend, doesn't that open the door to the banking world?
Well, I think that if you have to look at it in a little bit more political terms than the legal terms, or at least the policy terms. Just judging from the media coverage today and the statements being made by lawmakers and public officials across the board, there's been very limited negative backlash to this. And I'm hoping that, considering the huge amount of positive response there has been to this, is going to incentivize members of Congress on either side of the aisle to prioritize this issue, both in the lame duck as well as in the next session, regardless of the outcomes of the midterms.
Yeah, a lot of people think this is the first step towards legalization. I am not one of those. What impact do you think that will have, or is it way too early to talk about that? Because I think everyone who's got a feeling about what's going on is legalization is still many years off, because you have to set up some kind of a regulatory commission, not a regulatory, a group of regulators who will set the rules for that. But we're way ahead of ourselves there. You think?
Well, I mean, if I really had to wager, we didn't have the votes for descheduling before this announcement. I really don't think that we have them for it today. Anything is possible. A lot could change between now and the end of the session, but I honestly think that really the only thing that's feasible to get through Congress in the lame duck is the research bill that has already passed the Senate, and then passed the House, and then was compromised and had been reintroduced, and then Senator Cornyn decided to hold up on the unanimous consent. But that's getting into inside baseball. But between that and some sort of an incremental package that includes SAFE with some additional anti-discrimination measures, potentially veterans access, potentially or federal assistance for state level expungement, potentially access for small cannabis businesses to SBA loan and grant programs, potentially Second Amendment protections for medical cannabis patients, some package that includes some of those factors, I think, is very, very possible in the lame duck. And, this action by the president, I think, has really jump-started that conversation incredibly. Now, what the exact reaction to that is going to be politically, I think, remains to be seen. It could become a focus for folks like McConnell and McCarthy, or maybe it's going to be something that really shows lawmakers across the board that this is an issue that they can embrace without fear of political consequences, as long as they don't get sucked into partisan infighting and just trying to spank the other party on any issue they can. Because I mean, this is something that the vast majority of Americans support.
Right. They do. Those two party people, they love to slap around each other rather than listen to the people that put them in office. We don't need to go there. But this is a very good sign when the leader of the country makes kind of a statement. It should shake up both sides of the aisle a little bit, and maybe get them to actually start talking to each other rather than pointing the finger at each other. Am I too naive there?
I am cautiously optimistic that that is going to be the case. But this isn't just affecting us domestically. I've gotten half a dozen calls from major media outlets from around the world that are very interested in this. People are watching. And with ongoing conversations about exactly how the United Nations and the signatories to the Single Convention on Drugs should treat cannabis, I think that this is something that is going to have a big effect in terms of the conversations that people are having about sensible cannabis policy reform.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly glad your phone is ringing. I'm certainly glad you carved out some time for us at Pro Cannabis Media, and I really appreciate it, Morgan. I appreciate it. I do. And you're always welcome here, as you know. And I love chit-chatting with you anyway, and appreciate your regular appearances on the third Friday of every month on Green Rush Live. But we're gonna take a break. We're gonna actually tease the next segment that's coming up, which is a preview of the Real Cannabis Entrepreneur show that's going to be in Newark, New Jersey in just a couple of weeks. So don't go away. Green Rush Live continues after this.
As a broker, we have access to many, many cannabis carriers. So I will go in with 2 or 3 quotes for people. The quotes might be $20,000 for one, $22,000 for another, $17,500 for another. Pretty close among the 3. What I tell people is it's not the pricing, it's what's included and not included, meaning exclusions. An exclusion in layman's terms is just something that's not included. It's not on the menu. So it's just not included. But if you don't know that, if no one shows you that on page 71 of a 150-page policy, you're not going to know. No one knows. I never met one person that says they read an insurance policy. If you do, I got some property in Florida for you.
Weed Talk and In the Weeds are 2 productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first. Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out stylelighting.shop for more information.
We've got breaking news for all farmers and growers out there. How would you like to defer the taxes you pay on your grow? Now you can legally, thanks to a discovery by agricultural tax attorney Michael Berwick of the law firm Greenspoon Martyr.
I have been working with tax deferral for 20 years, and my team at Greenspoon Martyr in the tax area got together with our team in the cannabis area. And putting our heads together collectively, we have determined that this major tax deferral clause includes the growing of cannabis.
Now, don't think that this is a new tax code clause because it's been around for over a century.
Absolutely. This provision's been around for over 100 years. It applies. It was designed for agriculture. It was put in force at a time when we had a much more agrarian economy, big lobby for agriculture and farming, and that definition of agriculture has grown and expanded over the years. And again, it now includes cannabis.
How does it work?
Essentially, it will allow the taxpayer, if done correctly through us, it will allow the taxpayer to defer all state and federal ordinary income taxes for 30 years.
To find out more and see if you qualify as a grower, contact Michael Berwick at 305-789-2761 or call toll-free 888-491-1120 and ask for Michael Berwick's office, or just email him at michael.berwick, that's BURWICK, at gmlaw.com.
Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out stylelighting.shop for more information.
Hi, everyone. Welcome again to a really live, wink, wink, edition of Green Rush Live, our regularly scheduled Friday afternoon business of cannabis talk show here on Pro Cannabis Media. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media. And as you might be following us every week, last week, of course, we promoted the High Lifestyle Show with Gary Sommers and this NECANN event. It's all set for 3 days of fun and music. It's going on right now. And I'm hoping to get some really live inserts from that show on this show as quickly as we possibly can with all that technology out there. What can I tell you? This is what it depends on. In the meantime, there's another show. That's right. There's another show in the cannabis business space. It's called the Real Cannabis Entrepreneur Show. And the man behind it is Gary George, and he joins us now live. Hi, how are you, Gary?
Hey, Jimmy, thank you so much, man. PCM in the building. Thank y'all for having me on, man. As always, great energy and great times.
I got to tell you, Gary, most people think I've got really chaotic energy and I'm really, always running around. You make me feel like a sloth, okay? Your energy level is so off the charts. It's incredible.
Hey, I was a very busy baby, man, as you could tell, right?
I get that we're all extremely busy, but I do want to talk about this Real Cannabis Entrepreneur Conference. Yep. It's in Newark, New Jersey, which, by the way, is my place of birth, okay?
Oh,
I just want to make sure you understand that. October 21st and October 22nd at the Doubletree Hotel down there. Gary, what can people expect about the Real Cannabis Entrepreneur Conference, and why do you call it the real one?
Oh, very good questions. You started them off with really good, too, right off the bat, Jimmy. He's such a great interviewer. But yes, Real Cannabis Entrepreneur Conference is called, ladies and gentlemen, realcannabisentrepreneur.com. The reason why we called it the Real Cannabis Entrepreneur Conference is we decided to go get the people who are in the trenches doing it every day. Not professor talk, not the stuff in the book, not the theory, not the concept. I want the guys who are sitting there doing it 24/7 and are coming in to give me real-time data, because the cannabis industry moves at light speed. So one day in this industry is like 1 year in another. And that's why we got the Real Cannabis Entrepreneurs to come teach everybody in Jersey and around.
I don't know what time you're following. I always thought cannabis time was really laid back, and I'll get there when I get there, man.
Yeah, that's the user side, but the business side is a completely different one. Yeah, Jim.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a question right off the bat about access to capital, because that always seems to be the biggest issue for people who want to get into this business. The ability, obviously, you can't go to a bank. So where does someone who is an entrepreneur, doesn't know a lot of rich people, in friends and family world, where do they go and how do they go about that? And what can they learn about access to capital at your conference?
Great question. Again, man, two things that you could do. Raising capital, that's the number one biggest conundrum that everybody's having in the cannabis game, period. We can all get the licenses and say, yay, I got the license, but it really doesn't mean anything until you have your doors open, and that requires the capital. Everybody's in the capital funding raise mode right now. That's the reason why we brought in some of the best investors, some of the best private equity guys, some of the institutional guys. We have different levels of investors that are coming to check out some different deals flow, and that's what you have to do. Go look for private money, ladies and gentlemen. You can't get it from the bank. You're not going to get a loan. This is a federally illegal, still controlled substance, blah, blah, blah. So we have to go and use private investors, right? And those are the guys that you're going to find at our conference when you come to Real Cannabis Entrepreneur. We got plenty of them on stage, including my man David Hess from Trust Capital, including my man David Feldman, including David Koenig. I got a lot of Davids. And who else is there? I got a lot of different investors, guys. So you'll be there. Oh, my man Ben Richardson from 730. I mean, these are big dogs, guys that are doing it big. They're invested in a lot of the big dog companies like BDSA and all of the big ones like that. But they're there to judge our cannabis pitch contest. and they're also going to be looking for deals. So it's all about private investors, ladies and gentlemen. Come to the conference. That's where they're going to be at.
Yeah, I get that. I know two of those. I know Dave Feldman and David Kunick, obviously. So
Yeah.
I'm familiar with them. But there's another guy that's a speaker that has a great reputation. His name's Tony Gallo. Tell me how you know Tony.
Oh, Tony's my man. Tony, we go way back, man. Tony has probably attended almost all of our shows since the very beginning. We've all come up in New Jersey at the same time, watching this fledgling industry and bud to its fruition now. And Tony's been there since the very beginning, man. He's just a ball full of information. That's why I love Tony. He's like me. He's so passionate about security that you feel his energy, and he gives me a lot of stuff that I don't think about when it comes to security. So Tony Gallo is a real treat to see, guys, because security is also one of the number one besides compliance. Security, compliance, that's what you got to focus on.
Yeah, and it's still, I happen to think that they're trying, the man, let's just say, is trying everything they possibly can to retard the growth of this injury, not to start it, not to help it out in any way. By far, the toughest, most regulated industry, certainly in my lifetime, that is launched into $1 million, if soon to be $1 billion enterprise. In fact, I think it's already a few $1 billion.
Oh, yeah.
So the question I feel is, do you hear from people that are trying to start things, or they have their license and now they don't know what to do with it? Can we take the temperature of the tri-state area, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut at this point?
Yeah, that's a really good one as well, man, because we've been on the front lines of this whole entire process, and I get to talk to, a lot more people than other people do because of what we do at the conference, and I'm a resource and help a lot of people do things. But it gives me ability to measure and gauge what's really going on in the landscape. And what I've been noticing most, Jimmy, is the fact that, just like I said, we got all these people waving and saying, yeah, I got my conditional. But the other side of it is blank. There's no capital to make any moves. They aren't prepared in terms of putting all of the stuff together that they do to convert their conditional license to annual licenses. There's a lot of additional steps, and those things cost money. You can't convert to an annual because you got to pay additional professionals like Tony Gallo to do your security plan, like Jason Thomas, do your compliance plan. Like all my guys that sit there, they got to do that for you unless you're going to sit down and try to whip it out yourself, which you can. I don't discourage anyone. There's been those who have done it on their own. I take my hats off. I wouldn't try it, the whole thing. No, I would not. But some people have, but I encourage you to just go get the professionals, man, if you want to take the fast, quick route and do it the right way.
All right. Now, there's 3 states. I talked about New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, that tri-state area that everybody talks about and believes it's the center of the universe. I get it. I'm from Boston. It's not the center of the universe. We're the hub of the universe. New York is just the biggest media conglomerate city in the world.
Right.
That being said, as you know, New York has voted it in. They're slowly taking in and giving out those applications and checking out those applications. They haven't really awarded any licenses yet in New York, but New Jersey is a few months ahead of that.
Right.
What's the atmosphere like in New Jersey? How are the people that are in this business? And there aren't many that are actually open in New Jersey. Am I right?
Yeah, there's none that's open from the recreational side. We're all waiting. We're still just in our infancy phases, got our conditionals, moving to annuals. A lot of those conditionals are expiring. This is the big thing, ladies and gentlemen. You got 120 days. They give you that conditional. You got 120 days to convert it to an annual. That means you have to get your real estate. You got to get your zoning approvals. You got to get site plans. You got to get the architect out. You got to get Tony Gallo in them, come install all the security cameras. You got to get them to come do compliance. You got to build out your safe. All this stuff in 120 days is insane. If anybody has been through this process with any city, if just a regular normal business, brick and mortar business, we all know how long it takes just to get through the city zoning process. And so it's very much a challenge, and you have to get going now. That's why at this conference, we're giving everybody the blueprints to hurry up and also prepare themselves so that they don't get caught off guard.
Yeah. And the thing that I think anybody who gets a provisional license and starts looking into it, the daunting task is the costs of everything. And I've already heard many horror stories in Massachusetts over the last 4 years about landlords who are jacking up their rents because they have a desirable place for a cannabis dispensary and a cannabis business. Have you heard any of those stories in New Jersey yet?
Oh man, I was on the front lines of that one, Jimmy. I was on the front lines. I was one of the first ones out there starting to gather up real estate properties and all of this kind of thing, right? My daughter is a realtor, right? So it was a perfect timing. I got her into green zone real estate. She actually found tons. She placed dozens of people in New Jersey. She works for, she also does work for a lot of my attorneys, all the cannabis attorneys in New Jersey, who are all my friends. So we share her as a resource to help us, right? But I developed this crazy system to find green zone real estate in the very beginning, and it was such a challenge to do it, right? You know, I'm a tech head, so I had to use my tech tools to put some things together to help us go a little faster. Anyway, we approached these landlords. We said, hey, how much is rent? And they say $3,000. And then we say, you know, you can't make it up when it comes to the landlords. You have to tell them what your real business use is. So what are you using this for? Cannabis. As soon as we say cannabis, oh, 6,000, 8,000, 9,000. Just like that. Went from 3,000 to 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 to 8,000. Now, what's happening with the landlords is this. I've talked to so many of them. They were asking me, they were like, Gary, what is going on here? I have this building I've been sitting on for 10 years. I hardly get one phone call. And all of a sudden, I got 20 phone calls overnight. And I have to explain to them what's happening. And they're just like, wow, oh, they don't get it. But then they get it and they start asking questions. And that's when they start to elevate those rent rates. And that's what we're seeing in New Jersey big time. When I first started looking for real estate, I was turning my nose up at $3,000, $4,000 a month. I was like, ooh, that's a little high. By the time we got to the end, Jimmy, it was 12,000, 13. Get that right now. 12,000, we'll take it. 10,000, we'll take it. 9,000, we'll take it. It's like that. Competition got at such a level where 9,000, 10,000, in my mind, became a very acceptable number.
Yeah. Now, look, I love by the way, faster than you. Come on, that's impossible. That being said, how in the world, every report we hear about the cannabis businesses in Massachusetts, in Colorado, the mature markets, Washington, Michigan, California's a complete mess. Mm-hmm. Nobody's really from what I understand, 43% of cannabis businesses are making money. That means the majority are not making money. So yes, the mantra has to become survive before you thrive. Mm-hmm. That being said, why are people, clamoring to get in the door if they know they're not going to make money for a long time? Because that's really what it's going to take.
Exactly. You have to have the wherewithal to be able to withstand and make it through. Now, if you're a very shrewd operator, you absolutely will turn great profit during those times. And there's been plenty of them who have done it. Some who have done very impressive numbers. Those are going to be the first acquisition targets. For all the big MSOs, the multi-state operators who come in, they're going to look for those people who understand how to operate at a very shrewd level and a very lean level and is still able to pull those profit margins up above everybody else. That's really the key and the goal for a lot of the businesses when it comes to cannabis. Our real payout comes down to the exit. It's not so much the operation. Like you said, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with the operation, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of fines, a lot of this. Your money's all over the place. Well, but when you get to the end and you can get out, then you built this nice business that you can exit and get 5 million, 10 million, 8 million bucks for. That's a pretty nice exit, there. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd sign up for that today, by the way, just for the record.
Yeah. So it's the grind. You got to grind it a few years to get the gold at the end of the rainbow. But if you're really smart, though, you can get the gold well before the end of the rainbow. You just got to be a very shrewd operator, guys. And that's why we say, come to the conference, learn how to be that shrewd operator, because that's who we have, the guys who have done it 3 times over. My man Shayon back here on there, he's the youngest dispensary owner in the country. He's got now up to 4 dispensaries. He's only 27 years old. This man knows what he's doing. And he started his first one with $50,000. He was the first one to teach me how to do this thing on a shoestring. So there's many ways to make it happen.
That's Elevate, right?
Yes, Elevate. That's right, Massachusetts.
Elevate. Okay, so yes. Pronounce his last name for me again.
Adetaji.
Adetaji. All right.
Yep. Well, Shayon Adetaji. Yes, man. Yeah. Not Giannis. What'd you say? Not Giannis.
It isn't Giannis's last name. I refuse to, say Antetokounmpo.
Right.
All right. So let me talk to you about some of the other speakers, because there are a few on here that I recognize right away. One is someone I think is a friend of the Pro Cannabis Media family. Her name's Tara Masu.
Oh yeah. Big up to Tara.
And can you walk us through a little bit about what the speakers are going to be speaking on
Yes.
and what the schedule is, where people might be able to find that schedule?
Yes, absolutely, man. Well, Tara Masood, she's been down with us from day one. That's been one of our day ones who started and speaking with us back in 2018 all the way up to now. She's Jersey brethren, Blazing Bakery, and she's doing Blazing Barkery now with the treats. And Tara was also very instrumental in writing the legislation for New Jersey. The micro business legislation, actually, Tara wrote that entire part of the process. And I always forget that. And Tara reminds me, I say, Tara, you got to remind me more often that you did that. I forgot you. That's a significant accolade, you know? So yes, and she's super experienced in terms of edible science and that kind of thing. So she's going to be talking a bit about that, talking a bit about the application process. We're mixing it up this year because everyone's knee deep in the application process. So while we're going to teach that high level stuff and we're going to talk about the edibles and this and that and everything else, we're all going to be applying it to what's going on right now in the market right now. And that's why this is such an invaluable, I can't wait to learn from it because it's such an invaluable real-time piece of data that we all need to make appropriate pivots and adjustments right now. So it's really, really great. Yeah. So that's Tara. Go ahead.
I know. I think it's education. We're all learning. This is the thing, whether you're plant touching or not plant touching, an ancillary MRB company like ours, I'm learning every single day a new thing that I have to deal with when I reach out to the industry to say, hey, check this out. This is what we're doing. You want to play? And they're like, well, we have no marketing dollars. So I'm like, I get that. Do you still want to play? Because the knowledge base of everything, if you lead with education, if everything you do is based on education, we will finally get to a point, I don't know how long it's going to take, where there will be some more normalization and acceptance of this industry. That is way down the road for sure.
Yes.
Are you finding out that there are ancillary entrepreneurs out there that want to start doing business with the cannabis industry, but they're not a plant touching one?
Yeah, I'm finding a lot of those guys that are start to have opened their eyes. A lot of them have come to our conference, believe it or not, Dave. We got several success stories. I ran into somebody at another event. I think I was at CWCB or something, and he was one of the vendors there, and I was soliciting him about coming to sponsor the conference. He says, man, I know you. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, man, I got to go get my partner. I know you. He's got to hear this. So I was doing my pitch to these guys to come sponsor and everything. He said, wait a minute. I'm just going to tell you. You're the whole reason that this whole business is in play right now. These guys were doing some security safes or something else like that, and they flipped to the cannabis angle. So that was one of the many that have come in. Dan Jensen, another one who he worked with Supreme Security. He was one of our sponsors for many years. Got so enthused at our first conference that he started his own brand, Code 3 Outreach, where it was teaching all the EMS guys about using CBD and cannabis to deal with all the stress they go through as first responders. I mean, so we got several people. Roll Up Life. The Roll Up Life is a big popular, everybody knows them, Precious and Tyan from doing their delivery service. Same thing. They came 2019. Tyan was there. He came to our conference. He saw some people speak. He got motivated and he started the business. So we got real life examples of people who come to the conference, get excited, learn the information that they need, and they're able to go home because we give actionable. That's the difference too, I want to say about our conference and every other conference. The other things I don't like about other conferences is I don't like a lot of high level talk that doesn't give me actionable steps to do right now, because all that does is make you feel good for the moment in the room, but then you go home and sit at your desk and then you don't know what to do. What I've always done in this thing is make sure that everybody gives you actionable information. You're going to take notes that you can go home and implement right now. That is the difference of the way we have structured this entire event.
Yeah. Are there workshops or is it strictly lecture based speaking?
Yeah, lecture-based, no workshops, man. You're going to see that we do things so differently, and we're able to squeeze everybody and get everybody in the room. And our rooms are electric because everybody is in the room, right? And some of the other places, you got people going here, people going there. Everyone is stuck in this big human. That's the reason why we had to get the biggest ballroom in New Jersey to accommodate this one, because this one's going to be full of everybody and all the stuff going on at the same time. And the energy is just off the hook. And guys, if you haven't been to one of our conferences, it's not a boring conference. You're not going to sit there and be bored at all. We have live DJs. We got smoke machines. We're dropping bombs. We're going crazy in there. People are running around. I mean, we're giving away prizes. We're throwing out stuff. It's everything happening, and you will be pleasantly surprised. We call it edutainment. The best way to learn. You got to be you have to be entertained, and then it doesn't feel like education and learning.
Right. And actually, I was speaking to my class about that last night at Curry College. Edutainment is very, very important when you're on camera. That being said, you're
Yes.
very entertaining. Let's talk about Tribe Tokes, Kim B, because I met her
Yes.
3 years ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I met her 3 years ago. I've seen her in passing at various New York shows, but she'll be at this conference speaking too, right?
Absolutely, Kim B, man. She's such a fireball of energy. You guys look at me and say I'm energy. Wait till you see Kim B on stage. She's just like me, but maybe even more so. She was a Pilates instructor back in the day. She's got a lot of energy, but she's running one of the biggest companies, a big all-female owned brand called Tribe Tokes, a New York sexy vape brand. They've been doing it big. They're one of the few that I've seen that have been able to get theirs in the higher end department stores. Tribe Tokes is in a lot of the higher end department stores. They're making a very different approach, and that's a real good way of building a brand. Kim B has done that from ground up for 5+ years. Their companies, they're doing over $5 million a year, growing it up. They're raising capital to get in a manufacturing license. Man, Kim B's got a lot to tell you guys. So yeah, you got to definitely make sure you're there for her session.
And she has a lot of fun, and she's a great representative of the industry, I believe.
She is.
Last but not least, New Jersey Weed Man. Now, how well do you know this guy? And tell us his story.
Yes, I know NJ Weed Man very well, man. When I first got into the industry, I saw him and I said, wow, what is this guy? How is this possible that this guy is selling weed across the street from City Hall in the county seat of New Jersey, in Trenton, New Jersey? I just never thought that that would be possible ever in my days, that I would ever see that to be real. If someone told me that and I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would never believed it. But he is an extremely smart guy. And once I got to know him and I talked to him about how he did what he did and why he did, I learned that he is a shrewd attorney, basically. And he knows law very, very well. And he knows it so well that he's been able to challenge the court systems in New Jersey, so much so that he's won cases against them, and where he's now basically almost has immunity, where they will not bother him because they know they're going to lose.
Right. Plus, a lot of district attorneys really don't want to prosecute the cannabis industry, which is great because, let's face it, everybody's trying to get in and get a quick fix of cash as quickly as they can, but it takes time and organizational structure and things like you guys are teaching. That's really what's going to make the biggest difference in this industry for survival, I think, anyway.
Absolutely, man. And I'll say one of the other things about NJ Weed Man is the fact he's got one of the most notable brands in New Jersey. He's the most known individual. Now he's down in Miami. He's got the Miami's joint is called. You know, he's got NJ Weed Man's joint up here, and then he's got Miami's joint down there. And I mean, he's all about the lifestyle, and he's just been one who's been fighting for all. Same thing, been fighting for the legislation, regulation. He's the one who's sitting there doing that, going against the powers that be. And, you know, a lot of people say he's crazy and a lot of people say he's this, but I always tell people, I said, man, if you're doing anything revolutionary, somebody's going to call you crazy. If they don't call you crazy, you're not doing anything game changing.
People call me crazy all the time, I guess. So how long, when does it start? What are the days? It's October 21 and 22, right?
Yep. 21st.
It's a Friday, Saturday, right?
Yeah, Friday, Saturday, because I know a lot of my people are still working, right? We're fledgling, getting up to speed in New Jersey, so we're not all doing this full time. Everybody's got to work and then come over. So we're doing a Friday, goes from 10 to 6 on Friday. After that, we got a VIP cocktail reception party that we do after that, and it's a real nice networking event that we have. On Saturday, we go through the full lineup, same thing, 10 to 6. After that, we break down and we do our full big after party, our experiential off-site after party, ladies and gentlemen, where you're going to see all types of wondrous things. If you've ever been to a speakeasy, you will feel the vibe of this, because it's very much like a speakeasy. You will not know what you're getting yourself into until you walk into that building and you see flying aerial girls and masseuse stations and glow in the dark cotton candy. And I ain't even gonna tell y'all the rest, but just come to the after party.
I may have to extend my stay through Saturday night. I am working on rooms right now and checking out whether I'm gonna fly, train, or drive. That's really the biggest question. Gary George, always a pleasure to talk with you. And I get exhausted after I talk with you on a regular basis. But I will see,
energize you, man.
I will see you at the Real Cannabis Conference in Newark, New Jersey on October 21 and 22. We will take our first break.
As a broker, We have access to many, many cannabis carriers. So I will go in with 2 or 3 quotes for people. The quotes might be $20,000 for one, $22,000 for another, $17,500 for another. Pretty close among the 3. What I tell people is it's not the pricing, it's what's included and not included, meaning exclusions. An exclusion in layman's terms is just something that's not included. It's not on the menu. So it's just not included. But if you don't know that, if no one shows you that on page 71 of a 150-page policy, you're not going to know. No one knows. I never met one person that says they read an insurance policy. If you do, I got some property in Florida for you.
Weed Talk and In the Weeds are 2 productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first. Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to New England Cannabis Convention in Portland, Maine. That's right. NECANN has a very strong Maine connection with the various principals, Mark Shepard and friends involved with Portland, Maine through their lives, and they always look forward to running a show here in the Portland area at the Portland Sports Complex. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and the host of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and all that stuff. But one of the things that I love about these shows is you find unique people with great stories about their cannabis story, whether it is cannabis has saved my life, cannabis has changed my life, or in many cases, cannabis is our business, and it fits exactly what we're looking for. So, with that in mind, I want to bring in Mike Everett from the Stoned Moose in Bethel, Maine. Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
Tell us. Now, this, first of all, you're a dispensary. Come right over here. I want to make sure that we got you. It's more about you now than me, okay? I want to make sure that we got the name of the dispensary is?
The Stone Moose.
Where is it?
It's in Bethel, Maine.
On the way to?
Sunday River.
That's a ski resort. Right. And a golf course that I golfed on many, many, many moons ago when it first opened. Yes. A lot of people don't know this, but I actually spent 11 years in Portland, Maine at the CBS television station, Channel 13, WGME, working with the legendary Kim Block and Frank Fixeris. So I love coming back to Portland. But Mike, let's get back to you and your story. Okay? What is so special about your dispensary? And you told me already that you have both adult use and medical.
Yeah, we have the Stone Moose as our adult use medical recreational facility, and then the Moosehead Farms is our medical facility, and they're both on the same location. We also have a 6,000 square foot state-of-the-art grow facility on the thing. We also hold an adult use manufacturing license. We stay pretty busy at the area we're in. Our dispensary's a little different. We've got moose smoking joint in there. We've got an 12-foot carved moose out front.
All right, now hold those thoughts, because I want to make sure people have just heard what they thought they heard. Yes, he has carved. You have carved, or you have an artist carved?
We have an artist carved right out of Pennsylvania.
Fair enough, but you built your dispensary.
We built the entire facility, correct.
Tell me about the challenges, the journey. You guys told me, I think you came from Colorado, and here you are in Maine. And both states are legal states accepting of cannabis, but it's always a journey. It's always a battle to get that license, to get that door open, and to get that commence operations green light from the various state commissions. Yes. Walk me through that whole journey.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm a Maine native. I was born and raised here, and I moved to Colorado in 1980 and then back to Maine in 2016. We went through a 2-year process in Bethel just to get the town to vote on if we could even have cannabis in town. So that took 2 years of Wednesdays of my life, and 2 years of every other Tuesday of my life dealing with the town, ordinance review committees and everybody. And we opened up medical to begin with. And then when adult use come on, we applied for those licenses and permits. The town wasn't an issue at that point because we'd already voted all the ordinances in. The state process, everyone thinks it's real tough. They go hire lawyers. We did it all ourselves.
Can I ask you, any idea what kind of hours or man hours or female hours, whatever it was, that took to get those applications done?
We did it in about 3 days, getting it complete and submitted to them. And then we probably had another 2 to 3 days with them asking questions and stuff. I mean, we had a 90-day wait in there before they even touched it. But once we got it, it was fairly simple. And then we also have a cultivation license under adult use. And once we had that one first, so the other ones came easy.
When did you open your adult use?
August of last year, of 2021. Yep.
So a lot of this stuff, did a lot of this stuff happen during the pandemic?
Yes. Yep.
Well, it kept you busy, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, our medical store was open, but adult use is kind of taken over. Our original medical store is 2,000 square feet, the big store. Then we built just a small 400 square foot one for adult use. We changed those buildings around about 2.5 weeks ago. Just because the adult use, I had 20 to 30 people standing outside at a time.
Wow, that's great. I've heard its sales are going very well in Maine.
They are, and we contemplated shutting down the medical side, but we have a lot of good patients that rely on us, so we decided to push on with that also.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot, that it is a medicinal product. This is a plant medicine. You have to learn how to use it properly so you can get the benefits out of it. Isn't that right?
Yes, correct.
And it affects everybody differently. That's the biggest challenge, right? Oh, yeah. Everybody talks, it's an indica. No, it's a sativa. No, terpenes steer it to tell you which way it's going to go. So don't let those labels fool you. Am I doing okay?
Yeah, the THC labels kind of, that's
what sells.
That's what sells, but that's not what really the cause and effect is at the end of the day.
Correct.
Now the technology's around, they're starting to realize it's the different terpenes and cannabinoids in it and stuff like that. Because I got marijuana that's 17% that'll get you as high as the 30 all day long. So
and to me, that's really the big question. When I say, hey, is it any good? I don't know, it gets you high. I mean, that's all I care about, really. I mean, certain people have a low bar, let's just say, when it comes to expectations.
And we have like sleep chocolates that have 3 times the amount of CBN in them. That's basically the thing in marijuana that gets you tired, so we sell the heck out of those. People like to sleep.
No, by the way, one of the biggest problems in America is sleep-deprived adults. Right. And CBN, which is the magical cannabinoid, as Mike said, is the thing that you should be looking for in your cannabis or your tinctures or your sprays or whatever you use to titrate, whatever you use to get it in your body. Are you still, now that you're there, has the town come back to you at all and said, you know what? You guys have been doing great. We really like working with you. We thought this was going to happen. We thought that was going to happen. Am I right or wrong?
They've done a complete 180 on it. I mean, I walk into the town office, what do you need? But we help back with the community a lot. We also employ about 16 people with full-time jobs up there, decent paying jobs. And we've actually got a pretty good rapport with the whole community. Even people that were against it before, now they don't have any issues.
And you guys are a craft cannabis dispensary, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Now, for those who follow this, the multi-state operators are the ones that have really gotten this business going, but the craft cannabis growers, the craft cannabis sellers are the ones who are producing all the award-winning stuff for the most part that's out there.
Yeah, and it's, we've only got a 6,000 square foot facility, so it's easy to control, and, I've had bigger facilities in Colorado, and they get out of hand in a hurry.
What's the biggest challenge with a bigger facility?
Well, personnel is the big one, and then you got pest and everything. It's the bigger you get, the harder it is to control. That's any type of business, and it's especially true in the marijuana business because you may have 8 or 10 people that can control a 6,000 square foot facility all day long, and then you step up into a 20 or 30,000 square footer and you got 18 new people. It takes years to work through the correct ones. So you see quality, production, and everything go downhill. We're at a point where I've learned my lessons. Don't outgrow much more than you can sell in this business in your own store.
Well, that's a lesson for the industry.
That's a lesson for the industry, yeah.
Because we know that, there's been a lot of overexpansion in Massachusetts, a lot of dispensaries. Same thing is going to happen in New York. Same thing is going to happen in New Jersey. It's just the element of this industry.
And we watched it, went through it firsthand in Colorado, and it took a few years. Maine, it's happening 2 to 3 times as fast.
Faster.
Faster. Oh, yeah. You can go to Portland or Lewiston and stand on one corner and see 5 or 6 dispensaries in walking distance. They won't all make it. That's a given, and I don't know. Me and the wife just figured that they'd weed themselves out, Advice to a lot of people, don't take a lot of debt. That's another thing.
The
the market
way, man.
No. We're a debt-free company, so we'll survive anything they throw at us.
That's fantastic. What is your plan in the future? Are you planning on selling out, growing, getting old? What are you going to do?
Don't plan on selling out. It may go to our kids. We got 3 daughters and a son, and my son does a lot of my building with us. Like I said, we built our stores by our hand. We built our cultivation facility by ourselves.
How'd you come up with the stone moose? Come on.
Me and the wife were sitting on the porch one day when we were getting high, and a moose come walking up through the yard and walked right over to us, and that was Moosehead Farms and the Stone Moose at the same time. So
that is a great story. And now you already said, you teased, you have an artist that actually carved the moose with a joint in his mouth, right?
The one carved doesn't have a joint in his mouth. The one when you walk up onto the deck, we got another 6-footer up there, and he does have a joint in his mouth. He looks realistic.
Did you blow smoke in the moose's face when he came over to you? Come on.
We tried to. It was a big bull, so.
Mike Everett from the Stone Moose.
All right,
great.
thank you.
So much for. And that's in Bethel, Maine. So if you go or skiing, the word is skiing. That's a sport with 2 little things. You go down a mountain. If you go to Sunday River, you're going to drive right by your place, right?
Yeah, you can't miss it. We're the first building on Sunday River Road.
Worth the trip, right? Hey, we're going to have more interviews from the floor of NECANN in Portland, Maine. After this, don't go away. This special edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young continues after this.
As a broker, we have access to many, many cannabis carriers. So I will go in with 2 or 3 quotes for people. The quotes might be $20,000 for one, $22,000 for another, $17,500 for another. Pretty close among the 3. What I tell people is it's not the pricing, it's what's included and not included, meaning exclusions. An exclusion in layman's terms is just something that's not included. It's not on the menu. So it's just not included. But if you don't know that, if no one shows you that on page 71 of a 150-page policy, you're not going to know. No one knows. I never met one person that says they read an insurance policy. If you do, I got some property in Florida for you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the very special edition of In the Weeds at NECANN in Portland, Maine. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media. And again, one of the things about this cannabis industry is you find interesting ancillary products that are involved with the industry. And I walked by this fan, and I started talking to this guy, Steve Cote. Is it Cote or Cody?
It's Cote, not Cote.
Cote? No, it's Cody.
If
It's
Steve
Steve
Canada, it'd be Cote in Canada, but it's Cote here.
That's right. There is an influence of the French Canadians in Maine, right?
There certainly is.
All right, tell me a little bit about the Heatcraft item that I'm looking at here. What the hell does this do?
What the hell does this do is a great question. So people are very familiar with Heatcraft that are in the refrigeration world. We're known for walk-in coolers, walk-in freezers from small-scale convenience stores to large, giant facilities. And one of the things that makes our product unique compared to other products is that you walk into any store, you'll notice that ice cream has to stay in the cold in the middle of winter all the time, right? You have to keep products because you'll lose product.
I thought there were only 2 seasons in Maine, July and winter.
Sure seems like it. So we've taken that, the ability to run constantly and never shut off, and put it into the cannabis world. So this here is a medium profile evaporator. We also make large profiles that are probably another foot higher than this. The beauty of these, we'll turn it on real quick. Not that you guys will be able to feel it, because you won't, but just a quick demo of it.
Whoa! See, that's called embellishment. That's very cool.
That's one of the things that guys like about this a lot, the growers like about it, is the fact that it moves tremendous amount of air. It moves your CO2 around a lot. Guys will actually have this in favor to hit the plants too, and bend the plants to give them a little more stable construction when they grow, things like that. The simplicity of it is really, really what I like about it more than anything.
So the application is for grow houses, indoor grow houses more than anything else.
Yep.
And how is business going with this, fledgling industry in Maine and in the Northeast?
It's been fantastic. We're seeing continued growth every day with this. We're doing a lot of it in California as well, and it's just one of those things that's just taken off. We're excited about it.
And I love the fact that there are other applications for this fan in other industries that are now looking at cannabis and saying, you know what, we can probably open up a good revenue stream from the cannabis.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So we've been doing this for refrigeration world, for HVAC contractors. They will tell you Heatcraft has been around forever. We've been doing it forever. We're based out of Georgia. We're nationwide, and we distribute throughout the whole country, in Canada, and then some. So
one of the biggest issues, I don't know if you know this about the cannabis industry, is the energy consumption of indoor grows. Yeah. In Massachusetts alone, everybody knows this stat, 10% of the electric grid is now being consumed by indoor cannabis grows in Massachusetts.
Wow, I did not know that. Yeah. I did not know that. I believe it, because I've been to some of the grows in Massachusetts, and there's some big boys.
That's right. Sure. So I wonder, and again, this is one of the things I have with the industry, is there a way to power this unit without using traditional electricity? And I'm obviously going to the solar or the wind world. Is there any application? I know I'm probably putting you on the spot. Get the CEO on the phone. Will you please let me ask him?
Right. To power this through?
Yeah.
I mean, wherever it needs power.
Wherever you get power.
You need power to run it, period, right? It's the same as anything. The differences compared to a traditional, like a mini split application or a regular a ducted system, is just the fact that it's really simple. Simple controls outside that are robust, tried and true, and been around for years. The air movement, the simplicity of this. So
Maine people love simplicity.
I like it. I mean, because here's the deal. I put on my technician hat. I was a technician before I got into sales. You want simple. You don't want something that an HVAC tech's going to take hours and hours to troubleshoot and find out what's wrong with it. Because let's be honest, everything breaks.
Oh, God. We all know that. Hey, Steve Cote.
Yeah.
From north of Old Town, right?
That's right.
There isn't much north of Old Town in Maine other than Moosehead Lake, right?
That's right. There's not much up there. Bunch of trees.
And that is the furthest I've ever been north, is Orono, the University of Maine, back in the day. So good to talk with you. Heatcraft is what you want to do to cool your grow. We'll have more from the NECANN show in Portland after this. Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out stylelighting.shop for more information. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the New England Cannabis Convention Expo in Portland, Maine. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, walking the hallways, if you will, the trade show, and I come upon a guy and also a product that had that magic word in it. If anybody watches our shows, you know how important alternative energy resources have to become. So we've got Arch Solar, and this is Tony Keiffer, their president. Tony, thank you so much for allowing me into your booth.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell me about what is so unique about your product.
So our product is a hybrid greenhouse, which means that it's a warehouse type building on the bottom, but it's a naturally lit cultivation facility. So what's unique about it is it uses about 25% of the electricity, and the capital cost to get into the game is much lower than an indoor facility where you have chillers and all that expensive.
And it is more environmentally friendly if it's taking up less electric draw off that electric grid, right?
Absolutely. And from a standpoint of cultivation product as well, the natural light is full spectrum, gives you higher terpene values. Our product that comes out of is about twice the terpene percentage of a normal indoor grow.
Oh, now that's
quality. Yeah, so you got quality, you've got less carbon going into your product, and you've also got, you know, the ability to pass that savings on to the dispensary or whoever your, you know, final patient is.
There you go. And so how did you come into the greenhouse world?
So we started to look at sustainable year-round agriculture and integrating renewables into actually growing here in the Northeast. About a year into it, we went to a show like this, and all of a sudden, the cannabis growers were like, "This is what this is what I dream of at 4 a.m. Could you do this for cannabis?" So we then did our second generation, you know, for cannabis, and then a third generation greenhouse. So we've been slowly evolving that, and then actually integrating all the systems that need to go into it as well. So it's a turnkey platform as well.
I think it's really interesting with all these compliance issues and regulators and all the rules that really constrict this industry, make it very, very difficult to be in it, let alone start it and sustain and survive it. But before you even thrive in it, you have to survive in it first. And I'm big on why isn't one of those compliance issues, you know, limiting the electric draw on the grow facilities, making them to go to solar or a hybrid option like you. I bet you'd like that kind of regulation.
Well, Massachusetts actually has some limits on it, and they're, you know, thoughtful in how they've gone about that. So either you're capped at, I think it's 36 or 40 watts per square foot, or you have to have renewables. But they're in the forefront. Not the rest of the country is not in the forefront, and really it's being driven more from the CFO standpoint, who's seeing, okay, prices are down to 50% of what they were before. Electricity in the Northeast was up to 23 cents last winter.
It's going up again.
And it's going up again.
Yeah.
You know, the standard offer in New Hampshire is 46 cents for the winter. So, you know, if you're doing that and you're having to pay for all artificial lights, all HVAC, and all dehumidification to keep a facility operating, that's you know, 3 to 4 times more what you'd be spending in a hybrid greenhouse.
There you go. So that's why the hybrid greenhouse can pretty much own a good piece of this market. Do you have some sales goals here, Tony? What percentage of the market? I know you're probably like 100%, but I mean, where are you now? Where would you like to go?
You know, as a company, we started in the Northeast. We now have projects from Hawaii to Puerto Rico, Michigan. We've got over 250,000 square feet of hybrid greenhouse in operations across the country. I think for us, we've, you know, gotten into the multi-state operator market in the last year. We got a large facility I can show you, you know, some pictures of as well, if that's something.
You want to show some pictures right now?
If you like.
Yeah, no, and we're going to get copies of them, so this makes sense. So I'll just hold the mic and you walk. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
You're going to send me these images, and exactly right.
So what we've got here in this is a smaller craft facility, 5,000 square foot, for sort of a craft cannabis grow. And what you can see is we've got the flower room on the right, and then a veg room. This is under construction. And then going into the facility itself, kind of how we go about building out the facility for lab space, fertigation, et cetera. So it all comes in a turnkey sort of product. So that's an example of our, you know, smaller type facility, all self-contained, all compliant, you know, for that size grow. On the other hand, we also do larger size grows. This project here in Michigan is 60,000 square feet for a you know, private multi-state type of organization.
So we have a very good connection in Michigan. He's the executive director of NORML. He's my Michigan correspondent on our weekly news show, Rick Thompson. Where exactly is that facility?
So this facility is in Vassar, Michigan. It's an old automotive engine plant, or actually I think it's a foundry that was, you know, laying dormant, purchased by the owners. And what they've been doing is doing the environmental reclamation, and it's now a massive campus. They've got 2 6-bay cultivation facilities, and then there's a 10,000 square foot manufacturing facility right in between, and another 6 bays. So it's a total of 57,000 square feet of cultivation. That's got automated Dutch palletized systems, so the tabletops actually move around automatically throughout the facility and come to the people that are working.
Robots?
Working it. I'm sure they'll have planting robots in there as well.
Very cool. This industry is so fascinating to me because there's so many little parts, but respecting the environment, understanding the indoor grows are taking so much energy out of that electric grid. And now you've got a product, you've got something that can combat that and make it a lot cleaner, more efficient. And I got to ask you, I mean, is it more expensive than traditional greenhouses?
Than traditional greenhouses, yes, it is, because how we build them, the amount of systems that are involved is a lot more capital intensive.
A traditional greenhouse has no power, and it's just solar.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the sun and the outdoor, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's where I was going.
And so with ours, we have basically solid walls that are insulated, and then we also have the automated light deprivation. We've got the climate control. We've got automated systems that are basically reading sensors and determining how much feed should go into a plant at a given time based upon where it is in the day, how dry its substrate is, and it's all automated. It runs off the phone, and you don't like what you see, and you can change it right there. Yeah.
Unbelievable. That's Tony Keiffer. He's with Arch Solar. How do people get to Arch Solar? I'm going to guess archsolar.net. Ooh, archsolar.net. Don't forget that. And don't forget the special edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young on the floor of NECANN continues after this.
Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the special edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young on location at New England Cannabis Convention. We call it NECANN here in Albany, New York. And this booth happens to be across the way, if you will, from our pal Rick Linney from Accounting Buds, who, if you do watch our network, you've probably seen him on thousands of times. But when you're across from a network, you get noticed. And I met this gentleman, David Sandelman, at another trade show in New Jersey about 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
See, time flies. That was a while ago. That was probably at least 7-8 months ago.
I have no idea what day it is, so welcome to my world.
Yes.
And by the way, a fellow entrepreneur. Tell me about what you guys do and why you are shaking up this industry, David.
We've taken a whole new approach to drying and curing. Up until now, when people were doing drying and curing, legacy, they would hang the plant in a dry space, whether it was outside or in a room with an air conditioner or a dehumidifier, and they had to get it just right. If they pulled the flower out too soon, it would be wet. It would wind up in a bag or a container, and they had to burp it and let the moisture out, or they wound out with mold.
Hang on a second. You could burp weed?
Oh, yes.
No, you can't. What?
It came, yeah, when a Tupperware, remember you used to burp the Tupperware? That's where it came from, burping the container, letting the air out.
Okay.
But I ask people, you burp it in Florida in the summer or you burp it in upstate New York in the winter, it's going to be a very different burp. So,
and I learned something. That's great.
Depends, like where you do this, when you do it, you are a victim of the environment. So we turned the whole thing upside down. We created the perfect environment. You put the flower in, and then it dries to the perfect moisture content, and now it's curing. You don't have to move it out of the space. You don't have to guess when it's ready or not, and it just comes out amazing, sticky bud. And now because you have the right conditions, you leave it in there, and now you really are able to cure the flower. And now you can start thinking about a cannabis flower like a fine bottle of wine or a bourbon and how it gets better with time and age.
Look at that smile. You know what? He knows what he's talking about. He has been in space for a while. How did you get into the cannabis space? Because I'm going to guess that the background, tell me a little bit about the background and how we got to this point in time.
It started with cheese.
Of course it did.
So they've been making cheese for hundreds of years, but they would make a particular cheese in a particular region at a particular time of year. So if you think about it, you would make cheddar, and you'd make Romano and Emilia Romano. And 200 years ago, you wouldn't dream of making cheddar in Emilia Romano or vice versa. Now people want to make any kind of cheese, any place in the world, any time of the year. So they struggled with where they were aging the cheese. So we developed the technology for cheesemakers so that they can make any cheese anywhere and replicate the conditions of an aging room. It worked. We have hundreds of cheese facilities throughout North America. That then led to charcuterie, dry aging meats. And then we said, will this work for cannabis? So we built a small unit, which is now our home unit.
When did you do this?
The small unit, probably about 3 years ago, was the first prototype, and we gave it to a grower, and he said, this is the most amazing flower I've ever produced. And then we thought we were onto something, and we made a couple more, and now there are thousands of them out there, and people love it. We then scaled it back up to large commercial size, like a cheese aging room, but now these are rooms for drying flour, where people are doing 1,000, 1,500 pounds at a time into rooms. We have places with multiple rooms, big grow operations, and they're producing some of the finest flour the industry has seen.
That's a great story. And by the way, one of the most amazing things about this industry is running into people like you that have had a background in another part of the world, another application, if you will, and then have adapted it to this new opportunity in cannabis. I'm amazed at some of these stories. It's really fun. Do you enjoy being in the cannabis space now?
Oh, it's great. 5 years ago, if I told me I was standing at a weed show, I'd go, you're crazy. And here we are, at a cannabis weed show.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
As a broker, we have access to many cannabis carriers. So I will go in with 2 or 3 quotes for people. The quotes might be $20,000 for one, $22,000 for another, $17,500 for another. Pretty close among the 3. What I tell people is it's not the pricing, it's what's included and not included, meaning exclusions. An exclusion in layman's terms is just something that's not included. It's not on the menu, so it's just not included. But if you don't know that, if no one shows you that on page 71 of a 150-page policy, you're not going to know. No one knows. I never met one person that says they read an insurance policy. If you do, I got some property in Florida for you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young on the floor of the New England Cannabis Convention here in Albany, New York. And yesterday, I got to learn how to pronounce the word microbial with the accent on the right syllables. Well, today, we're going to go check out this booth over here that has an antimicrobial element to it. Come on, we're going to meet Deb Peris. She's over here with Steri. Deb, thank you so much for joining me here.
Hi, good morning, Jimmy. How are you?
Good. And we don't need to talk about last night because it was a lot of fun we had.
We're not going to talk about.
We're not going to talk about last night. All right. I do want to hear about the Steri and what antimicrobial treatment actually means.
Okay. Well, Precision X-Ray is located in Madison, Connecticut. We've been in the medical field for over 20 years using these systems on the research side. And when cannabis industry started to grow, we found a new market for us. So using the same technology that we use for our medical devices, we started the cannabis Steri system. So what it does, it's an X-ray decontamination system for cannabis. You're going to ask, I don't know what that even means. So what happens? Cannabis is grown outdoors, sometimes indoors. The humidity, the way that it is grown is a natural environment for microbe growth. So fungus, molds, bacterias, and the states have mandated testing to make sure that the cannabis is safe for consumer use, and they want microbes to be under a specific limit. So what our system does is it cleans the cannabis from the microbes, the molds, the mildews, the fungus, so that the cultivators can pass their testing the first time, all the time.
You give a sterile shower to the plant, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
And that's a really important thing when you're dealing with a plant medicine, because the consumers really want to make sure when they go into a legal licensed facility that the product has been tested, its quality, you know what you're getting, as opposed to the old days when we used to meet in the parking lots, let's just say. Not that I remember doing that in any way, but okay, it was. Deb, who do you guys go after? Are you looking for the growers? Are you looking for the verticals? Are you selling to multi-state operators? Or is that all of the above?
So it's interesting. So we can hit every step of the supply chain. So from the cultivators that would purchase a system to be able to decontaminate their cannabis prior to selling, we can go to the distributors that are looking to purchase cannabis from multiple cultivators. They want to ensure that the products that they're getting are safe, so they can sterilize. We can go after the dispensaries, where they're also getting multiple products from multiple vendors, distributors or cultivators. So they may want to ensure that the products that they're selling is also safe. Testing labs. So testing labs is another portion. The cultivators have to send their product to the testing labs, so they may be able to offer that service to them if their systems or if their cannabis fails test.
And you remember that who sat at our table last night? It was Chris Dalla from Proverty Labs.
That's right. That's right.
So that's a good connection for you too, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's a step that the cultivators, when they're looking to build their license and build their practice, they need to build this kind of a step into their business plan to make sure that they're protecting themselves from for future regulations. So it's a really important step that a lot of people aren't aware of yet.
And there are more regulations and compliant issues in this industry than any new industry that has been this successful ever in history.
Absolutely.
And it's still a cash-only economy, which we all know has to end. Sorry, I got on the politics thing again, didn't I? I just can't help myself. Deb, it was great to hang out with you last night. Thank you so much. And again, just remember, we were off the clock. We had fun. Everybody got to know everybody, and we're still friends. And here we are doing our.
Stays in Albany, or what happens in Albany stays in Albany.
I like that. Well, I bet there's a town in Nevada we could sell that to. All right. Hey, we're gonna have more of this special edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young live. All right, look live from the New England Cannabis Convention in Albany, New York. After this, don't go away.
Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first. Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out stylelighting.shop for more information.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to a very special edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young, on location at the New England Cannabis Convention, NECANN, here in Albany, New York. As you know, you never know who you're going to see at a trade show. So I'm walking down the aisles, and this woman, Tina Sbrega from Gardner Federal Credit Union, remembered being interviewed by us way back when this whole thing started and said, hello, Tina, it's great to see you.
And it's great to see you, Jimmy.
How important is survival in the cannabis business?
How important is survival? We should be talking about thriving in the cannabis business. It's time. But unfortunately, Jimmy, you know, we are seeing Massachusetts is maturing very quickly. I think much more quickly than some of the other states like Colorado. We're seeing a lot of price competition. Prices are coming down. We're seeing a lot of pressure. We're seeing a lot of operators that really are struggling to get to the finish line. So they aren't thriving, they're surviving. And, you know, that leads to a lot more mergers and acquisitions, which we've seen the last few months. And we just hope that, you know, this industry was meant to bring many people success and job opportunities and a new business sector that adds to the economy. And we just hope that everyone can find the wherewithal to make it through. There's a lot of individuals and businesses that are successful and they are thriving, but there's still a long way to go for the industry as a whole, I think.
And the ancillary industries too, I might add. Joining us is Melissa Miranda, who has joined you this year in a, tell me the role that you're playing for Lighthouse Business Solutions.
I'm the new Executive Vice President, Chief Operating Officer, and really excited to be joining Tina and the team as we take the entity and go nationwide with it. So we're pretty excited about our future.
That's good. And look, the future is an unknown for all of us in this industry, right? We really don't know. We certainly know one thing. There isn't a lot of movement at the federal level in Washington, D.C., let alone forget cannabis, and I hate to bring up politics, but it's a fact now, right? There isn't a lot of movement on a lot of things unless it's an emergency. And yes, this country has seen a lot of emergencies over the last few years. It's not an easy thing. I'm not making it light. I'm not making light of that, all right? This is our system. It's the best system in the world. I accept it and love America. We'd love to figure out ways to find middle ground. We're right in the middle, Tina, as you know, of the debate, supposedly, on the floor of the Senate. I don't know if anybody's actually debating, by the way. They're meeting in small rooms and they're talking to each other and says, I'll give you this, I'll give you. It's all sorts of wheeling and dealing. How frustrating is it for someone in the banking business to still have to, you know, put up with these regulations that are out there, and it's still a cash-only industry?
Cash intensive, I would say. Yes. You know, so our opinion, right, doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong, but our opinion is that I sort of liken the cannabis industry to other high-risk businesses like money service businesses, check cashers, payday lenders, all casinos, all cash-intensive businesses that are considered high risk from a regulatory banking perspective. There's a lot of financial institutions that won't bank money service businesses because of the intense compliance requirements in terms of monitoring, preventing money laundering, reporting suspicious activity, red flags, all of that. If we had the Safe Banking Act passed tomorrow, in our humble opinion, and I think Melissa agrees with me, absolutely, it does not mean that banking, the industry, becomes mainstream and every financial institution is going to bank the industry. I don't think that there's going to be a lot, if any, regulatory and compliance relief to financial institutions. If anything, we're a little concerned that there might be more, because now that we can acknowledge that banks and credit unions are banking the industry, then the burden could be on us to even give more information about the cannabis operators. So the Safe Banking Act, you and I were talking earlier, and you know, there's the Safe Banking Act Plus, and I said, well, we need a plus because we need some regulatory relief. When financial institutions can have regulatory relief, then we can start to see the pricing come down, and then we can start to say we can mainstream bank cannabis and ancillary businesses. But I think we're a long ways away from that.
Most of the people in the industry still are talking, the ones that know, about 10 years. Okay, that's a much more realistic thought than
tomorrow, a year from now, 2 years from now, much more realistic. But think about this. In 2018, the Farm Bill passes, and nobody understood that the plant that they just made legal to farm, okay, hemp, if you will, okay, had all these little cannabinoid chemicals in it, and they didn't know that, and they didn't know how to regulate it, and here we are, holy mackerel, 4 years later, and they still don't have regulations for one of the cannabinoids in one. This is not an intoxicating cannabinoid, people. It's CBD or CBN or CBG. And if you don't know what those mean, go Google. Sorry. Tina, again, that's one of the reasons why I'm frustrated with our federal government, because here's a non-intoxicating plant that is a cash crop that they haven't even figured out how much can we put into food to make it safe. You cannot put too much CBD in a product. At this point with our research, which is a really important part of this industry, right? We don't think it's going to have any harm other than the benefits of the darn chemical. Right? This is what I see. And we want the cannabis industry to have regulations that the feds put in place. I'm not real thrilled, but can we get one? This is what I keep telling you about psilocybin. Can we get one plant medicine done first, please, before we move on to the next one? And I'm sorry I took it up because I know you have some comments about what I said.
I was going to say, be careful what you ask for, right? If you want federal legalization, there's many things that are going to come with it. Be careful what you ask for.
A big tax, for instance. How do you view this industry? You know, you have not been in cannabis before you entered the Gardner Federal Credit Union family?
Before I entered Lighthouse, no, I was in wealth management and trust services. So it's a new industry for me, but having, had experience, let's be honest, in the past, very thrilled to be part of it. Totally amazed at the depth and the professionalism and the science, the scientists I see coming into this space, which I am so excited for. A lot of people. We were in a presentation yesterday. There was an attorney talking about some of the different benefits of the plant that he has seen for some of our veterans and treatments. I'm just so excited to be part of an industry that could be bringing some very significant and much needed relief to people on the medicinal side that we've just begun to scratch the surface on, as well as the decriminalization of it, and all of that is just, it's just really special to be a part of. And we as a banking partner, it's just amazing to be able to offer that service in a compliant way to help this business really grab hold and become legitimate. I see it in the conversations that my friends and professional colleagues ask me, as Tina said, come over to the dark side, right? Melissa, what the heck are you doing?
Some good people on the dark side, I just want to say.
Well, right, and exactly. And so as people's perception of what this business looks like changes, it's amazing, and I just see a lot of really amazing opportunity and a bright future as we try to figure this out going forward. So
I think you'd articulated the challenges beautifully of everyone in this business, in this industry, and we all face this in one way or another, no matter where we are. I went to an NCIA membership event here in Albany a few months ago and sat down with Aaron Smith, who's still the executive director of the NCIA. And he made a very compelling speech and a great point. I really believe in what he said, which is all of us in the cannabis industry have an obligation to educate those that aren't in the industry. It's the only way we're going to get to normalization. And the more times I see things that are normal, the more excited I get about this industry. Tina, you've been there since the beginning, right? I mean, Massachusetts voted it in for 4 years ago, 4 long years ago. We are 245 dispensaries later, right? We've got a vibrant market in Massachusetts. You're seeing the
great study in economics, right? You know, supply, demand, markets, and right. As you look back at the last 4 years of the development of this state, of what Massachusetts did, are there lessons that New York can learn from the, and I don't want to say mistakes, the experience in Massachusetts? Because it was not easy for that first group of commissioners to write the rules, regulate the rules, put the first licenses out there. I mean, and ran to the hills. I just want to say, no, I mean, sorry, Steve. I had a nice with Steve Hoffman a couple of weeks ago, too. It was kind of fun. But go back to my question about Massachusetts. What can New York learn from the Massachusetts experience?
So, you know, that's a really interesting question, and it's easy to be the Monday morning quarterback and wake up and say, how could the game have been played differently? I think early on, and this is not in defense of Cannabis Control Commission, we're just talking about how it all rolled out. So if you recall, very early on, the Cannabis Control Commission was being criticized for the delay in approving licenses. And I remember our first couple of accounts that we opened were for operators that were already licensed because they were moving from medicinal to adult, vertically integrated. And there were all of these others that were in the application process. And early on, I was like, we opened 2 weeks ago. Why haven't you opened your storefront yet? And then all of a sudden we learned, oh, this might be 18 months later or 24 months later. And I think in retrospect, the Cannabis Control Commission has very methodical rollout. You have 200 retail dispensaries. If you looking back and being the morning quarterback, you can't get why they did what they did. And it was learning too, so there were a host of combinations. You know, what can New York learn from that? It's like the Cannabis Control Commission learned from studying Colorado. We all need to network with one another and, you know, what went wrong, what would you have done differently from a banking perspective. And we were at a session yesterday, and I think there's a little frustration, and we've all heard it. We need the regulations, right? We need the regulations in the industry, and we're very happy to be here in New York and looking forward to banking the industry. But everyone in this room, whether they're going to be a cultivator or a dispensary, we need the regulations. And the regulations look like they're at minimum not going to be released until the end of this year, is what we heard yesterday. So, you know, if I had a chance to sit down with New York, I would say, let's try it. And I know there's a process. Can't really speed it up, but laying that foundation, right? You're building a house. The foundation is extremely important to have the house be erected appropriately.
I think you can understand the next statement I'm about to make. You know, the cannabis industry talks about dog years in time, right? Everybody knows it's 7. It's 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward, 1 step forward, 1 step backward. There's not going to be a smooth evolution of this, and that's why I brought up the stigma again, because we're all facing it in every form. How can Lighthouse Business Solutions help those that are getting into this industry deal with that stigma that they're going to have to deal with on a regular basis?
Well, I think having a compliant banking solution, we try to make it as normal as we possibly can, although we all know a cannabis bank account is not a normal bank account due to all the compliance. But to be able to have a normal banking account, we cannot give them a corporate credit card, but we can give them that business debit card to try to make their business transactions as normal and as fluid and as seamless as possible. Again, helping to bring that legitimacy to their business, being partnered with a company like Lighthouse, which is very well respected in the industry, I think goes a long way as they're trying to move their business forward. And we become that partner with them, right? We're really there, especially in a budding industry like New York. They're just getting started. we're that real partner to say, hey, here's where you're at along the way. You need to be thinking about this now. Next, you've got to think about that. Make sure your vendors are appropriate for your business and not trying to take advantage of you. So, we're really that business partner, and we're excited to be part of it and help in any way we can.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've done a great job so far, Tina. You've been a leader of this industry in Massachusetts since the very beginning. It's not lost on those that have been on the outside looking in and reporting and documenting the end of cannabis prohibition in Massachusetts and hopefully the rest of the country. Lastly, how do people get to you guys? I mean, I know it's Greater Federal Credit Union, Lighthouse Business Solutions. Do we have two different websites? Are you under the Gardner Credit Union, Federal Gardner? You know what I'm saying. Yeah. Under one umbrella?
Yeah. So, a great question. Lighthouse Biz Solutions is a wholly owned subsidiary of GFA. So, our cannabis clients, their deposits and their loans are with GFA. So think of Lighthouse as being, our commitment to serving the cannabis industry is the formation of Lighthouse. So every employee that works for Lighthouse, all we do all day long is talk cannabis banking. So we do nothing else. So we're based out of Massachusetts. Here we are sitting in New York. And how is a retail dispensary going to do business with us? We said, it's a cash-intensive business. I'm not driving my cash from New York to central Massachusetts every day. We have clients in Oregon and Ohio, and trust me, they're not driving their cash to GFA. So regardless of where the dispensary or the cultivator or the ancillary company is working and located, we have, a robust set of electronic banking solutions. So when was the last time you went into your bank to do your business? So
it's a sore subject for me personally right now. Let's just keep going.
Okay. So online banking, wire transfers, ACH. And then if you're a dispensary and you're dealing in cash, whether you're across the street from one of our branches or you're 1,000 miles from one of our branches, we have secure cash transportation in every state that's legal. So we will take the pains of picking up your cash with a third-party provider that we've contracted with, and that party will count the cash, make sure it gets to its final destination for crediting to your account without any delays. So it doesn't matter where you are, and we're really the servicing and the compliance arm, so that we're making sure that your accounts are being monitored, reported appropriately. Happy to say that we've processed over $2 billion. I think we're approaching $2.5 billion in cannabis deposits since we started. And
it's a serious percentage of an industry that I think is at the 28 billion level. Good job, Tina.
It is. It's a lot of deposits being processed, and importantly, processed in a very compliant manner. So we've had many regulatory examinations, because you get a bullseye on your back the minute you tell your regulators you're banking a high-risk business. And happy to say that, all of those were acceptable to the regulators. I'm not going to say, they were endorsed by the regulators, because that's probably an improper term to use today. But we're still here, and we're still operating very successfully.
They used to call this the evil weed, right? Now it's the necessary evil weed because of its medicinal qualities. And that's always lost on a lot of people, especially in this industry, who are part of the culture. And the word recreational, that's out there. It's a recreational. Robitussin was given to me as a kid as a cough medicine, okay? And I noticed when I was a kid that if I took Robitussin, I got high. I'm sorry, it happens. That's why you have to show that you're over 21 now to buy Robitussin in the various CVS stores. That is a medicinal product. Cannabis is a medicinal plant product that needs to be treated the same way. And I don't know, we know there are warnings. Don't let your children get at your Robitussin because it's an adult 21 product now, okay? It's education. It's the only thing that we in the industry have a tool, a weapon to combat this thing, to explain to people that you can use this responsibly and it can enhance your life. But don't, like anything else, extremes are not good at anything, people. Right? Yeah. It's moderation and responsible, and you have to teach yourself or learn about that. And Lord knows, science and research is evolving, and I still maintain that's what I want to go to. If the feds want to tax it, I want it to go to the research and science behind this. What do you guys think?
Yeah. You know, I'm going to share a great story with you, because when you talk about the stigma, I think we've come a long way, but I think we've got much more work to do. And collectively, we have to do that, to all of us, because it does take a village. But I'll share a story with you because I think it speaks to, you know, how much more work there is to do. So we have a client, a veteran. Thank him for serving our country all the time. And he had a lot of health issues, PTSD, aches, pains, you know, the whole gamut. The Veterans Hospital, he was a frequent flyer at. He was on a lot of prescription medication, and, you know, one drug leads to another, and before you know it, you're in a fog, and you can't, you know, only another drug will get you out of the fog, and here we go. So he turned to cannabis, and he got rid of all of his medication, did a follow-up visit at the Veterans, said to the doctor, you know, I feel great. The doctor did his vitals and everything, and said, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever medication we've recently put you on is working. And he said to the doctor, he said, I'm not taking any of that medication. I've gone to cannabis, and I feel much better. I'm sleeping better. My mood is better. My aches and pains are better. My joints are better. He lost his veterans benefits.
Because he admitted he was taking medicinal marijuana. I think I know who this is, but I'm not going
to do.
Oh, we absolutely.
Yeah.
At every level. And I always say, in politics especially, I think in this country, we have to vote in our town elections, because that's the first step. And especially if you're a pro-cannabis person or you support the industry in one way or another, vote in town elections, because, you know, for the most part, everybody votes when it's a presidential election. We see the numbers go up, right? And we also see the numbers go up whenever cannabis is on the ballot, I just want to say. Another thing that brings people out, because they care about it. I really think that, and starting at the town level, because there are still some towns that don't want anything to do with cannabis, you know? So, as you said, Tina, we have so much more work to do. And I appreciate you taking the time. This has been a great conversation, by the way, with both of you. And I wish you the best of luck in your new venture, as it were, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. Excited to be here.
Tina?
Always. It's our pleasure.
Nice to see you again. And we will continue with more of In the Weeds from the New England Cannabis Convention here in Albany, New York, after this.
Coming up on We Talk News this week, President Joe Biden finally steps up and delivers leadership for cannabis reform at the federal level. Biden calls for the pardoning of all federal sentences for nonviolent possession crimes. Then he calls on the governors of all the states to offer the same pardon. Best of all, he's calling on the Justice Department to immediately look into rescheduling, if not descheduling, the plant from the Controlled Substances Act. The end of prohibition is near. We'll have reaction from NORML and the NCIA in Washington, D.C. We Talk News with Elena Pinto is next.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elena Pinto for Pro Cannabis Media, and welcome to Weed Talk News. We begin today's episode with exciting breaking news from the White House. In a major move promised in his campaign run, President Joe Biden will pardon all prior federal offenses of simple marijuana possession. While this move falls short of full decriminalization of the plant, it's a major step forward in getting people out of prison for non-violent offenses. Pro Cannabis Media's Jimmy Young has more on this major announcement from the White House.
Congratulations, because I know how hard you and the other NCIA people work at this, and to actually see this happen out of the blue has to be a nice feeling for you.
Well, I started in 2013, and it was a different world before there were legal sales. And my goal was representing the cannabis industry on Capitol Hill, putting a professional face on the cannabis industry, letting the industry being treated like every other industry in America, and just raising the public profile of this issue. And to think, in 2014, we had the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment pass Congress. And let's be honest, 8 years later, what has really moved besides legislation being introduced or one chamber or another passing some bill, but what has actually changed in law that's been significant? And now the President of the United States is actually doing something to where people's cannabis convictions are going to get pardoned. This is going to be life-changing for many thousands of people. And this is actually going to change that discussion and hopefully spur governors out there to do the same, where, most of these convictions, I don't know if it's 90+% of these convictions are at the state level, but it starts that process. And, I can't say this enough. The President of the United States is taking, very serious cannabis issue policy and discussing it and putting it out there for the public to ruminate on. And that's pretty historic.
The president will also encourage governors to take similar steps to pardon simple possession charges, and will task the Department of Health and Human Services and Attorney General Merrick Garland to expeditiously review how cannabis is scheduled under federal law. Until that story broke from the White House Thursday afternoon, most of the cannabis world's attention was fixated on a story that doesn't have nearly as happy as an ending. This week, it came to light that an employee of multi-state operator Trulieve died as a result of working at a production facility in Holyoke, Massachusetts. The worker has been identified as Lorna McMurray. An OSHA investigation, which does not name McMurray, found that on January 7th of this year, an employee was grinding cannabis flower to be packaged into pre-rolls when she, quote, said she couldn't breathe, and was killed due to the hazards of ground cannabis dust. The report also mentioned that the inhaled dust contained keef from cannabis, but it doesn't give many other details than that. The Young Jerks podcast, which first identified McMurray as the victim, recently spoke with her stepfather.
For a couple of weeks before she passed, she was messaging me to where I work for respirators. She's like, "Dad, can you bring me home some respirators?" And of course, so obviously they weren't supplying them to her. I had to sneak them out of my shop to bring them to her.
The group also shared a statement from an unidentified former coworker who alleged mismanagement at this facility, saying, quote, "I had quit about a month prior to her passing due to the horrific management and corruption that I witnessed daily as a supervisor within the facility. I wish that I had been there to save her. Please look out for your people. Please educate yourselves." Pro Cannabis Media has reached out to Trulieve's corporate communications VP. We are still waiting for a response. Many outlets in the Northeast and nationwide now have their eyes on this unfolding story, and will keep you updated on any updates that may follow. For now, let's check in with Weed Talk News producer Tori Chamberlain for what else is happening in Massachusetts this week.
Hey guys, I'm Tori Chamberlain with this week's Bay State Report. On the heels of Lorna McMurray's death, we'll certainly be watching for any response from the state's Cannabis Control Commission. A lot of activists and outlets are asking them to speak up right now and make worker safety a priority in the state. So we'll certainly be keeping up with this and let you know about any updates right here on Weed Talk News. In the meantime, another company seems to be in legal trouble here in Massachusetts. Online outlet Law 360 reports that Bud & Mary's Cultivation, Inc. has filed a lawsuit against cannabis tech company Agrify Corp. The lawsuit alleges that Agrify made empty promises to turn a site in Bellingham, Massachusetts into a cannabis cultivation center, and instead turned it into essentially a money pit. The lawsuit claims that Agrify engaged in unfair trade practices by allegedly lying about its experience, offering a lowball estimate for construction costs, and hiding construction details from Bud & Mary's, and even making unauthorized draws on the construction loan to make investors believe that the project was actually on time when it wasn't. This is just another example of all the woes that small cannabis companies have to endure, and it's why we definitely need business protections and worker safety protections in this industry. Now, in happier news, the NECANN High Lifestyle Show is happening in Boxborough, Massachusetts this weekend. The event will bring together brands, dispensaries, distributors, growers, artists, performers, and consumers to enjoy a weekend of concerts, comedy, education. Celebrities like Cheech Marin will be there, as well as socializing and networking. You're going to have to be at least 21 years old to get onto the property for the event, and there's not going to be any alcohol, just cannabis consumption.
The biggest difference between this for me, it's the first time I've done an outdoor event. You know, there's components you can't really control with the outdoors, but more bigger is the fact that it's on a private property where ownership of the entire place is 21 plus. So, you know, by mass law, this is a private place and consumption is legal. So it's our first time doing, you know, an openly legal consumption event.
The Weed Talk News team will be at that event in Boxborough this weekend, so make sure you catch our full recap of it on the next episode of Weed Talk News. And finally, we want to give a shout out to Nikki Johnson, the owner of the Heritage Club in Cambridge. They will be holding their official grand opening this weekend, which we will also be stopping by. This is, of course, the first Black woman-owned club opening in the state of Massachusetts, so we're super excited for that. That's it from Massachusetts this week. I'll see you guys next time. I'm Tori Chamberlain for Pro Cannabis Media.
Bay State Cannabis Report is supported by Holyoke Cannabis, Holyoke's finest cannabis recreational experience.
It's been more than a week now since Hurricane Ian slammed Florida's Gulf Coast, claiming more than 100 lives and leaving a path of devastating damage across several counties. The storm certainly took a toll on businesses across the state, including cannabis. Deborah Borchardt has this week's Green Market Report, taking a look at how those business owners are being impacted.
I'm Deborah Borchardt, and this is the business update for Weed Talk News from the Green Market Report. People in Florida stocked up on cannabis ahead of Hurricane Ian, and that was probably the smart move. Many of the biggest cannabis companies in the state had to close at least some of their dispensaries in hard-hit areas. Trulieve and Verano said they both still had 3 stores that remain closed, as did many other cannabis companies. Trulieve said despite the closures, the storm had 0 impact on grows or processing. Earlier this week, the SEC filed charges against 8 for a stock promotion scheme that included 3 cannabis stocks. Elegance Brands, Emerald Health Pharmaceutical, and High Times were the stocks that Jonathan McCullough promoted in his newsletter, Palm Beach Venture. Emerald and Elegance both had to pay fines, and some of their people are now barred from serving as an officer in the company. High Times paid for the promotion, but the company wasn't charged in the scheme. It's the beginning of Croptober, when many outdoor cultivation sites begin harvesting their cannabis. This year, though, with prices continuing to plunge, harvest time might not be so celebratory. Cannabis Benchmark said it expects wholesale prices to keep falling. And speaking of falling, sales fell in the state of Nevada for fiscal year 2022. Despite tourism rising in the key market of Las Vegas, sales fell by 4% versus last year. Now, that's troubling because the state was just coming out of COVID lockdowns in 2021. Sales fell below the billion-dollar level to $965 million. And this has been the business update for Weed Talk News, provided by the Green Market Report.
Weed is now for sale in Vermont for everyone 21 and older. This past week, the Green Mountain State's first cannabis retailers opened their doors for recreational sales. And while the honeymoon period seems to have sparked some good feedback, MJ Biz Daily reports some business owners have voiced concerns about limited supply and product selection as cultivators and processors ramp up production. So let's get the latest from Vermont this week with Jessie Lynn Dolan.
I'm Jessie Lynn Dolan from Nurse Grown Organics and Vermont Cannabis Nurses, and this is the Weed Talk News Vermont Report. October 1st marked the start of the Vermont adult use cannabis sales, with lines flowing out the door of the only 3 licensed retail storefronts in this state: Mountain Girl Cannabis in Rutland, Flora Cannabis in Middlebury, and Ceres Collaborative in Burlington. The rollout continues to be slow, with the Cannabis Control Board approving 13 more licenses this week, including 1 retailer. Petty Vermont kicked off Cannabis Month with the start of retail sales on October 1st, highlighting their new app. Where to Find Vermont Weed. Visit app.headyvermont.com to check it out. The Vermont Cannabis Nurses Association have started a free weekly cannabis nurse hotline for consumers, patients, and cannabis employees to help bridge the education gap and provide support for all Vermonters. Vermont Growers Association hosted a community discussion on Thursday, October 6th with local cultivators and policy experts entitled "The Market is What We Make It." That's the Vermont Report for Weed Talk News. I'm Vermont's cannabis nurse in Ganjier, Jessie Lynn Dolan.
Many other states seem to be getting closer to going green, with places like Arkansas and Missouri putting cannabis-related amendments on their November ballot. And in Missouri, analysts say going from medical only to adult use sales would give the Show Me state a big boom economically. Brandon Jones has the details in this week's Missouri Report.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones from Distribution Maven with the Missouri Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. And that's right, adult use is on the ballot here in November, and that's all the talk. The big thing is the financial breakdown, and as you can see on Fox 4, they did the financial breakdown for what they project for the next 3 years here in the state if adult use actually passes. So next year they project 250, a little over 300 million in 2024, but they actually project over 900 million in cannabis sales in the state of Missouri in 2025. They kind of say that that will be the turning point when people stop using the illicit market and come more towards using the adult use, getting everything from dispensaries and getting things that are actually been put on metric and been traced and know exactly where the lineage and where it came from. So a big thing here in Missouri is whether this is going to pass. They see about 2/3 right now is leaning towards passing it, but again, those are early polls and we don't know exactly what's going to be coming out in November. There is a lot of press pushback from the opposition saying that there's not enough things in the actual bill. And if you notice, they don't focus any on what the actual legislation is, just what the economic impact would be. So again, I'm Brandon Jones from Missouri Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. And all I do is please go get some more education and figure out if you want to vote on this bill in November. Thanks a lot. Have a great week.
As more and more states legalize the plant for medical and adult use, equity in the industry has taken center stage in many conversations about policy and legislation. And in many places, we're finally starting to see the results of equitable access, including in Illinois, where the state's first social equity applicant and Black-owned craft cultivation company has begun operations. Thomas Howard takes a closer look in this week's Illinois Report.
Hi, I'm a cannabis industry lawyer, Tom Howard, reporting with Illinois News. And big story this week out of Illinois. And it's a long time coming because the person who won, Starbuds Illinois, won their craft grower license probably over a year ago in July of 2021, and they applied for it over a year before that by April 30th of 2020. So over 2 years after the application process for craft grower licenses in Illinois ended, the first craft grower is now officially open for business. It is in Rockford, Illinois, Starbuds IL. It is 66% Black owned by Black women owned, actually. And they have started production. And then Jerry Costello II, he's the director of agriculture in charge of the Illinois cannabis licenses that are issued by the Department of Agriculture. He said this is the first of 342 licenses issued by the department in the year to open their doors, and there are dozens more who will be joining them soon. So look out for more craft growers to begin operations in the state of Illinois. Don't think you're going to be able to buy their products yet. No. The state first allows them to be operational, and they give them their certificate of operation, and then they're allowed to start vegging out their clones or taking clippings from their mothers. I'm not sure where they got these mothers, of course. And so in the coming months, maybe 5 months from now or so, the first Starbuds craft grown cannabis products should be hitting the shelves in Illinois dispensaries. And out of those 48 craft grower licenses that the state issued in July of 2022, 42% are majority Black owned, 36% are majority white owned, 8% are majority Hispanic owned, and 8% are owned by a partnership group. Not really sure what that means. And they were all awarded to social equity applicants. That's really the big news out of Illinois this week. I'm Tom with Cannabis Legalization News, reporting for Weed Talk News, and sending it back to all the good people that are going to take it from here.
When we talk about equity in the industry, that often means capital and funding. And this week in New Jersey, a special event is looking to help entrepreneurs and business owners who are looking to secure funding or increase it. Jill Goldsberry has the details in our New Jersey report.
Hey everyone, it's Jill Goldsberry with the Cannabis News in New Jersey, and I've got some exciting things coming up for the cannabis entrepreneurs. As we move into this last quarter of the year, some exciting events are happening for the cannabis entrepreneur who's looking to increase funding or secure it. And it comes in the form of the 2022 New Jersey Cannabis Expo and the Cannabis Investment Expo, taking place on October 10th through the 12th at the New Jersey Convention Center in Edison, New Jersey. Guests are able to enjoy both events for the price of one ticket, and entrepreneurs can expect to get a lot out of this event, including networking. There's actually panels that are going on all day. You'll also have the opportunity to learn about all the advances in cannabis operations and investments, cannabis trends, and of course, information on the business industry that is CBD, hemp, and THC. For more information on this, go to canna1.com and register for the event. It's happening on October 10th through the 12th. We'll see you there. I'm Jill Goldsberry with Weed Talk News, New Jersey. Good night.
The general support for legalization of cannabis only seems to be increasing nationwide. A recent report by the Team Kentucky Medical Cannabis Advisory Committee found an overwhelming show of support for legalization in the state at a whopping 98.6%. A co-chair of the panel said everyone who spoke at recent public hearings also spoke in support of legalizing medical cannabis. A new Washington Post University of Maryland poll finds 73% of Maryland voters favor legalizing the use of cannabis for people 21 and older by next July. And another recent survey by Rasmussen Reports shows that a majority of Americans don't believe cannabis is dangerous. Marijuana Moment reported the findings of the survey, which found 59% of respondents agree that drug misuse in the United States is, quote, getting worse in general, but none of them believe that cannabis fell into that category. And 28% of respondents overall said they believe cannabis is, quote, not very dangerous or dangerous at all. The change in stigma even catching on with politicians and lawmakers, like the Attorney General of Pennsylvania. Maya Christofowitz has that story and more in this week's Pennsylvania Report.
I'm Maya Christofowitz from Scarlet Express, and I'm here in the Keystone State, Pennsylvania, reporting for Weed Talk News. First up, Pennsylvania gubernatorial nominee Attorney General Josh Shapiro, who has expressed support for cannabis policy change previously, reiterated his support for marijuana legalization. He said, "Continuing to criminalize adult personal marijuana use is a waste of limited law enforcement resources, taxpayer dollars, disproportionately impacts minority communities, and does not make our communities safer." He wants to expunge the records of those convicted for nonviolent possession of small amounts of marijuana. He also wants to regulate and tax the industry. Lastly, he said that attracting businesses to Pennsylvania is essential in creating good paying jobs and boosting the Commonwealth's economy. Speaking of, more than 2,500 Pennsylvanians with minor nonviolent marijuana criminal convictions have applied for a pardon under a new program launched by Democratic Governor Tom Wolf and Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman this month. The deadline to apply to the Pennsylvania Marijuana Pardon Project, a one-time large-scale pardon effort through the Pennsylvania Board of Pardons, is this Friday. Last up, a former medical marijuana dispensary employee in Pennsylvania filed a lawsuit against Green Thumb Industries, accusing the Chicago-based multi-state operator of age and sex discrimination. According to Green Market Report, Carrie Baker, who's in her 50s, alleges she was forced out of her role with Rise Dispensary to make room for younger, single male employees. Here are the details. Baker was initially offered a patient care specialist role after she applied for a better paying manager job. She then performed the duties of a manager despite not being in the role, while a less qualified young male employee was promoted to a shift supervisor position over her. She then complained to GTI Human Resources and filed a complaint in 2018. However, she started receiving disciplinary actions from GTI, and after feeling she was being harassed, she quit her job in June of 2019. She then filed a U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaint in 2020. And then in 2022, the EEOC made no determination on the complaint and issued Baker a notice of a right to sue for discrimination. Well, that's a wrap from Pennsylvania. I'm Maya Christofowitz from Scarlet Express, and I'll be back next week to talk about what's hot and what's not in Pennsylvania. From Weed Talk News, have a fabulous week.
Last week, we reported about some changes to license requirements in Washington state when it comes to residency and vertical integration. Well, a recent court ruling decided something similar in Maine, allowing people who don't reside in the state to apply for medical cannabis business licenses. Our Maine correspondent, Rye Russell, explains how it's going to impact the industry there.
Hi, I'm Rye Russell from Bud's Emporium in Medway, Maine, with this week's Maine Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. A few weeks ago, the First Circuit Court of Appeals ruled to strike down Maine's residency requirement for its medical program. This comes shortly after another ruling in another case removing the residency requirements for the adult use program. Now, Maine's cannabis market is officially open for business, and all potential investors looking at this special and unique market has an opportunity to participate. Additionally, this week, Maine's cannabis market prepares for a change in leadership as the current director of Maine's Office of Cannabis Policy, Eric Gunderson, will be stepping down after 4 years of service. The Maine cannabis industry eagerly awaits what's to come with a new cannabis czar taking over soon. That's this week's Maine Cannabis Report. I'm Rye Russell from Bud's Emporium in Medway, Maine, reporting for Weed Talk News.
We tell you all the time here at Pro Cannabis Media that it's a whole new world of weed out there and to use it wisely. Well, that's especially true for expectant mothers everywhere and in the state of Michigan who may be thinking of using cannabis to combat any ailments during pregnancy. Well, Michigan NORML Executive Director Rick Thompson has that story and more this week.
Hello again. This is the Michigan Report with Rick Thompson for Weed Talk News. Let's begin. A new article published by MLive exposes a problem many people thought was resolved when cannabis was legalized in 2018. That would be the legitimate use of products containing THC by expectant mothers. State law still requires doctors to report any THC detected in an expectant mother or a newborn child to Child Protective Services. Michigan does require a warning label on all THC products advising expectant mothers to consult their physician before using, but there's no clear indication that your gynecologist or regular physician is required by law to report you for your cannabis use. Although most physicians seem uncomfortable to make a report against their own patient, larger healthcare systems do create company-wide policies based on regulations such as this one. Now, there's no legislative fix as of yet to end this punitive and outdated government policy, but one can be expected to appear in the 2023 legislative session. Well, Detroit's ordinance allowing adult use cannabis businesses has barely begun the licensing process, and now it's being asked to halt that process yet again. Remember, last year, the city's licensing ordinance was ruled likely to be unconstitutional by a federal judge. Detroit put forth a second ordinance, which was similarly challenged. 2 lawsuits sought to invalidate the new ordinance based on the preferential treatment given to social equity applicants and how those applicants are defined. Last week, a judge threw out those 2 lawsuits and the city charged forward with licensing, but now the new suit seeks to stop the process altogether. The latest suit comes from cannabis company Pharmaco and their Red, White, and Bloom division, and a Michigan citizen who believes he would be disadvantaged by the current licensing process. The suit was filed in federal court, and there's no known date for a hearing on that issue. Well, what's the latest scam in Michigan's cannabis industry? According to the CRA, it's having a boatload of cannabis delivered to a warehouse by a licensed secure transporter, except the recipient isn't a licensed cannabis entity. Yes, people have learned that they can order a delivery of cannabis using a legitimate cannabis license number and make it seem like a legitimate transaction, but have it delivered to an address that is far away from any licensed facility. The Cannabis Regulatory Agency issued a memo noting an uptick in these incidents in the months of August and September. In our final story today, the new interim director of the Cannabis Regulatory Agency spoke to a crowd of about 200 at the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association luncheon on Wednesday. Brian Hanna was tapped by the governor 3 weeks ago to replace outgoing and beloved Director Andrew Brisboe. Now, Hanna has faced a great deal of backlash because he's a former police officer and an investigator with the Michigan State Police, which is an agency that has a lot of problems concerning cannabis lately. Hanna had previously served in the old Marijuana Regulatory Agency and the Bureau of Medical Marijuana Regulation in their enforcement divisions. Now, during the luncheon, Hanna spoke about his short-term plan and renewed a commitment to step up enforcement actions against those cheaters within the regulated market, including those who are importing cannabis oil from other states. And that's it for the Michigan Report with Rick Thompson on Weed Talk News.
New from California, the state's Department of Cannabis Control is offering $20 million in grant funding to support research on topics like preventing monopolization of the cannabis industry and securing the genetics of legacy strains, which is a pretty big deal for a state that's been pioneering the industry for decades. And just up the coast, Oregon is getting its first taste of some new companies and products this week. Our new Oregon correspondent, Marianne Kursagi, has the details.
I'm Marianne from Alibi Cannabis with this week's Oregon Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. This week, we have a couple of exciting product launches in Oregon. Uncle Arnie's Beverages, based in California, have finally made their way north. I hear their iced tea lemonade is amazing. Another new product is a gummy line by Astral Alibi with a patented star shape and full spectrum oil with two delicious Northwest flavors, peach and huckleberry. Look for these in Green Mart, Green Muse, and other retailers around the state. And finally, in trade association news, with just a few acronyms, on the heels of the merger of Orca, Farms Inc., and Oregon IPA, which created the CIA, we have another announcement. The OCA, Oregon Cannabis Association, has announced Amy Margolis is returning as executive director. She was instrumental in the early cannabis industry in Oregon, so we are excited to see where this takes the industry. That'll do it for the Oregon Report this week. I'm Marianne with Alibi for Weed Talk News.
And finally, a state agency in Morocco has issued the first 10 permits for the use of cannabis in the industry, medicine, and for export. Cannabis is already widely cultivated in Morocco illegally, and the new law is intended to improve farmers' incomes and protect them from drug traffickers who control the cannabis trade and export it illegally to Europe. Recreational usage is still not allowed under the new law, but with this new move, we can only hope it's just a matter of time. After all, it's a whole new world of weed out there, and remember to use it wisely. That's it for this week's episode of Weed Talk News. I'm Elena Pinto for Pro Cannabis Media.
As a broker, we have access to many, many cannabis carriers. So I will go in with 2 or 3 quotes for people. The quotes might be $20,000 for one, $22,000 for another, $17,500 for another. Pretty close among the 3. What I tell people is it's not the pricing, it's what's included and not included, meaning exclusions. An exclusion in layman's terms is just something that's not included. It's not on the menu, so it's just not included. But if you don't know that, if no one shows you that on page 71 of a 150-page policy, you're not going to know. No one knows. I never met one person that says they read an insurance policy. If you do, I got some property in Florida for you.
Weed Talk and In the Weeds are 2 productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out stylelighting.shop for more information.
Pro Cannabis Media programming is available live and on demand on our Facebook page at Pro Canna Media, on Instagram at Pro Cannabis Media, on LinkedIn also at Pro Cannabis Media, on YouTube and YouTube Live on Pro Cannabis Media, Twitter at Pro Canna Media, and on twitch.tv/Pro Cannabis Media. So like, share, and subscribe to all of our content, newsletters, and shows live or on demand.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.